Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're ready to begin. The February 14th, 2008 Planning Commission meeting is now called to order. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. We're live on KCLV Channel 2, and this meeting will be rebroadcast Saturday at 10 a.m., the following Monday at midnight, Tuesday at 5 a.m., and Thursday at 6 p.m. I'd like to say Happy Valentine's Day to everyone as well.
Thank you.
Can we have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Chairman Goins,
Present.
Vice Chairman Trowbridge,
Present.
Commissioner Truesdale,
Present.
Commissioner Evans,
Present.
Commissioner Steinman,
Present.
Commissioner Dunham,
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call your attention to the information printed in your agenda concerning our action and the appeal and the review process, if appropriate. Please read this carefully, and if you have any questions, staff is available. Also, the second page of the agenda contains our rules of conduct. We appreciate you adhering to those rules so we can have a smooth meeting. Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the floor for approval of the final minutes from the January 10th, 2008 Planning Commission meeting?
I'd like to make the motion to approve the final minutes of the meeting of January 10th.
Motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. That motion has passed. Let's move on to our housekeeping items. Are there any items, or staff?
Should that be
Commissioner Quinn, were you? So you were present? Yes. Correct. Thank you. Housekeeping?
Okay. Staff notes the following abeyance requests. Item 6, SDR 25484. The applicant's requested abeyance until February 28. Item 11, SDR 24242. Staff is requesting abeyance until March 13. Items 12 through 15, GPA 22587, ZON 23373, VAR 23661, and SDR 23377. The applicant has requested that these items be tabled. Items 24, 25, and 26, ZON 25758, SDR 25760, and VAC 25759. The applicant's requested abeyance until March 13. Items 27 through 31, ZON 25776, VAR 25778, SUP 25775, SUP 25779, and SDR 25773. The applicant's requested abeyance until March 13. Items 32 and 33, VAR 25771 and SUP 25769. The applicant's requested these items be tabled. Item 36, SDR 25990. This is a late request not shown on the pink sheets, but the applicant has requested abeyance until March 13. And the last abeyance request is item 53, SDR 26214. The applicant has requested abeyance until February 28.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Stephen Richardson, Richardson Partnership, representing items 44, 45, and 46. We would like those items to be held. It's our understanding that the neighbor has found some recent information on Nevada Power easement that we're trying to get resolved. So we'd like to sort that out with them and hold it.
Thank you very much. You represent the applicant, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And to when? What date did you give? I'm sorry.
So what date
was your request?
2 weeks? Yes.
That'd be the 28th.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Advance with Advance and Associates, 900 South Pavilion Center Drive, Suite 160, representing the applicant XC Development, items 27 through 31. I just wanted to go on record to say that we've met with some of our neighbors, and they've given us some excellent suggestions that we want to take the time between now and the 13th, which we've asked for that advance, to incorporate those ideas into our design. So just wanted to go on record saying that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evans?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I note that a number of these that were read into the record are, it's the second or third time that abeyances have been requested, and I think our backup gives sufficient explanation, but I think the commission needs to make a finding that there's sufficient cause, just cause for the continued abeyance. And my thought is the record that we have that explains the various reasonings for the abeyance provides sufficient reasoning. So,
Thank you. There'll be a motion on the abeyance withdrawal request
Having said
items.
that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as modified with the abeyance and items that were withheld as written into the record.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if you could read in the items that the first gentleman had requested to be held, since they were a public hearing, we just need to read those into the record.
Okay, those would be items number 36, 44, 45, and 46.
We need to read them in its entirety?
Oh, no, the first gentleman who came up, I thought there were a couple of items that weren't on the pink sheet that he referred to
Yeah, I
as being...
think those are items 44 through 46.
Okay.
Yeah.
45,
Do we need to read them in fully?
36.
Or just the title. if you
Okay.
could, sir.
You want to do that?
Those items request to be held to the February 28th meeting, items 44 through 45, are VAR 25481, applicant owner BBH LLC, to allow a 0-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required for a proposed light manufacturing facility at 1924, 1930, and 2000 Western Avenue. Item 45, VAR 26127, to allow 76 parking spaces where 106 spaces are required for a proposed light manufacturing facility. Item 46, SDR 25482, for a proposed 49,494 square foot light manufacturing facility with a waiver to allow no landscaping buffer along the north and south property lines where 8 feet is required.
Probably also have to read number 36 too then.
36 or 46?
Yes, he had read 30, okay, all right, okay.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Okay, the motion's been made to approve the agenda as modified by the staff requests by items.
Motion's on the floor. Cast your vote.
Please vote again.
And that motion has passed. Now we go to the one motion, one vote items.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just for a second, I would advise Commissioner Quinn that she is able to vote on the abeyance on item number 44 when that item comes back. She has indicated she has a conflict on that one, and she will not be voting on number 44 when it comes back to you.
Thank you.
Starting with sentence. So read the header.
Yeah. The following are items that may be considered in one motion, one vote. They are considered routine, non-public, and public hearing items. All public hearing items and non-public hearing items will be opened at one time. Any person representing an application or a member of the public or a member of the Planning Commission not in agreement with the conditions and all standard conditions for the application recommended by staff should request that the item be removed from this part of the agenda. I'll go ahead and read those.
Mr. Chairman, staff would request that item 7, SUP 26102, be removed from one motion, one vote, so we can make a condition change.
We'll read in items 8, 9, and 10. Item 8, SUP 26246, applicant, the Hive owner, Melee Pono Holding Company, to increase the square footage from 5,235 square feet to 8,855 square feet for a tavern limited establishment at 501 and 503 Fremont Street. Item 9, SUP 26265, applicant Small Z LLC, owner Village of Centennial Springs Partners LLC, for a proposed gaming establishment, restricted license in an approved supper club at 7585 Norman Rockwell Lane. Item 10, SUP 26267, applicant Adam Corrigan, owner the Howard Hughes Corporation, for a proposed gaming establishment restricted within an existing pub, bar, and lounge at the northeast corner of Charleston Boulevard and Desert Foothills Drive. That concludes the one motion, one vote. Does anybody want to speak for or against any of these items? Seeing none, any questions or comments by the board? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Seeing
on
none,
the
I'd like to make a motion to approve the one motion, one vote items 8, 9, and 10.
motion on the floor for approval. Please cast your votes. That item has passed, and we'll pull item 7.
Pardon me? All of those, 8, 9, and 10 will go forward to council on March 19th.
Item 7 on the one motion, one vote, SUP 26102, applicant Metro PCS, owner City of North Las Vegas, to allow a proposed co-location of antennas on an existing 160-foot wireless communication facility, non-stealth design at 5219 La Concha Drive. Staff?
Staff finds this use to be compatible with adjacent properties and recommends approval with a deletion of condition number 2 as the cases are not related.
Do we have a change of condition?
Yes.
Delete 2.
Okay.
You said it so fast.
There's a motion on the floor on item 7 for deletion of condition number 2.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Since this is a public hearing item now that's been pulled off, we'll just need to have a public hearing on this.
I'll open this for a public hearing. Is there anybody for or against the item? Please come forward. Sure, come on down. Right up to the microphone. State your name and address for the record.
My name is William F. Nappy. I have a small business, 810 East Sahara Avenue, Suite 6. That's my primary habitation quarters. I'm a night watchman and I run the business. That's where I stay. My only question is on item 7, the applicant is Metro PCS, owner City of Las Vegas, the antenna, to coexist with Metro PCS item 33, owner Walking Gin. My concern with wireless is that, you can sit there with the right technology, somebody knows what they're doing. They can sit there and read your mail all day, basically your communications as they go back and forth. Do you know this person? Are you all related? It's okay if there's there's no high security information going back and forth between the two. Well,
not that I know of, and that's actually with the City of North Las Vegas.
The City of North Las Vegas. Either way, is Walton Gin, is he do you know this person well?
I do not know, sir.
If he's not affiliated with the City of Las Vegas, I would ask to be look a little more closely at it, because if we're, I couldn't call it national security, or possibly, this is a hub of many things being Las Vegas, but wireless communications are very vulnerable to people snatching information, coming and going. So I don't know, if you don't know this person, I would hold off, and that's my objection at this time, because I don't know him. You don't know, you say you don't know him, so that was basically.
Thank you very much.
If I will.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. William Daly, representing Metro PCS, 3157 North Rainbow Boulevard. Just to clarify that, there are two separate sites on the agenda tonight, the La Concha site and then the other site with Mr. Gwynn's property, or Ron's property. So just for clarification, it's not a mix of things.
You're not eavesdropping, are you?
Not that I know of. Hopefully we're going to have people making phone calls real soon.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else at the public hearing, I'll close. Any questions or comments by the board? Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve special use permit 26102 as submitted by staff with the deletion of condition number 2.
Motion on the floor. Please cast your vote.
Yeah.
And that motion has passed.
And that item will go forward to council on March 19th.
We will now move on to our public hearing items. We'll begin with item 16. GPA 26004, applicant Tanea Azure LLC, owner Tanea Azure LLC et al., request from a rural density residential to office at the southeast corner of Azure Drive and Tanea Way. Item 17, ZON 26006, from U Undeveloped R Rural Density Residential, General Plan Designation to office. Item 18, VAR 26369, to allow a 20-foot front yard setback where 25 feet is required on a proposed 5 buildings, 51,000 square foot professional office development. Item 19, SDR 26008, review of a proposed 5-building, 51,000 square foot professional office development. Staff?
In regard to items 16 and 17, staff finds the general plan amendment and rezoning are consistent with the pattern of development that is occurring at the intersection of Tanea and Azure. In regard to items 18 and 19, staff finds the development plan is too intense for this site and recommends denial of items 18 and 19.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Applicant?
Jay Brown, 520 South 4th Street, representing the applicant. With me tonight is Fred Wade, one of the applicant's principals. Again, with regard to items 16 and 17, as you heard from staff, we're asking just for a portion of the general plan to be amended and to rezone this subject property to office. They have no concerns. They recommend approval. So I guess we can hopefully move on to items 18 and 19. Here we're requesting a variance as well as a site development review. Mr. Wade has been working with the neighbors literally for years, countless meetings with the neighbors, as well as with staff and even with the county. And with that, I'll turn the microphone over to him, and he'll give you a little background.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Wade, 10,080 West Alta Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. As Mr. Brown indicated, we've worked extensively on this project. Appreciate both the staff in the county and the staff here at the City of Las Vegas for their efforts in reaching this point. Also like to point out we have 3 neighbors who are with us here tonight in support and appreciate their help as well. We, as Jay indicated, the first 2 items, we appreciate staff's recommendation of approval. With respect to the variance, the setbacks required in the county when this project was first approved are 20 feet. And we had made a fully negotiated transaction with the neighbors to the rear of the property to increase the setback and the landscape buffer from the 15 feet required to 20 feet. So if you look to the rear of the property along the residence lines, we've increased that to 20 feet. The neighbors appreciate that gesture. It was intended these buildings be fronted as close to the street as possible, as far away from their residences. When we presented to the city indicated to us that the setback requirement is 25 feet, different from the county. We immediately went back to the neighbors, explained to them this concern prior to filing the variance, and had a consensus among those residents living there that they would prefer to keep the 20 feet landscape buffer and ask us to file the variance for the 5 additional feet on the street frontage. So with that, we feel we have the neighbor support. We've met again with the county. Again, everything to the rear of the property is in Clark County. We've met with Clark County staff and liaison for Commissioner Maxfield, and again feel that the original agreement that was reached is appropriate to continue with at this point.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record. And
My name's Lynn Fenstermaker. I live at 6075 Starlight Drive, which is behind the center of this property, right here. And as Fred indicated, we've been meeting for quite a lengthy time with this particular developer to come up with plans that would work within a rural residential horse-zoned neighborhood. And we're okay with professional offices going in along the frontage of Tanea. The one thing that we've been working very hard is to ensure that this does not encroach back into the neighborhood within existing houses, because the developer does own 4 1/2 acre lots that are to the rear along Starlight. And the one condition that we made is that we did not want to see any rezoning into the neighborhood unless they decided to buy out the whole block. It's sort of an all or nothing type of thing. But as far as what they've represented tonight, we're in support of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no more comments, I'll close the public hearing. I'll take some comments and questions from the board. Vice Chairman Trowbridge.
Well, I was just going to simply say that I think the project is acceptable, but I would like some kind of condition there that the structures have as close to a home-like appearance as possible so it's not intrusive into the neighborhood.
That would be on the, if such a condition were the pleasure of the commission, that would be on the site development plan review, item 19, and staff will attempt to depict or craft a motion. Condition.
It's very good.
Go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This was a condition that was set forth at the very beginning, and the county and the city has reiterated that. We have maintained single-story heights. We have left the windows smaller. It's a residential-style roof. One of the requests were made that we look at the roof structures in the neighborhood, and we charged our architect to provide a model and a design which was consistent with the structures in the neighborhood, and we feel it's appropriate, and the neighbors have signed off on it as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Does planning staff feel that the existing language in the conditions addresses that to assure, or by acceptance of the rendering, does that lock them into following through with that?
Yes, the elevations as proposed would be the ones that they would be held to, and the roof lines and the windows are as he indicated.
Thank you.
I should note for the record, however, that one of the letters that we show in opposition is by the property owner that is the northernmost residential property immediately abutting this project on the west side of Starlight, does show it in opposition in your file documents.
Okay. So noted. Mr. Wade?
Yes, if I can comment, that's Mr. Combs' residence. He filed his card before we had our second neighborhood meeting, and he indicated to us that, as Lynn indicated, we withdrew the portion of the property that protruded to the east, so our development maintains only Tenaya frontage, and which really leads to staff's comments with respect to the property being too intense. When we filed for approval at the county level, we were only entitled to include those parcels which existed in the county. It did not include the half-acre parcel at the corner of Tenaya and Azure. That has always been in the city, so our project was limited. However, during the process of all the neighborhood meetings and with staff and the rest, we always showed a conceptual plan which included all the way to the corner. So everyone was noticed how the ultimate project would look, but our applications were confined to only those properties which were within the jurisdiction.
Thank you. Commissioner Dunham?
I want to compliment Mr. Wade and Mr. Brown on working with the neighbors and coming to some sort of common resolution, and I appreciate that because I believe you did this early on when this was in the county. And I realize that there are 5 buildings on here, and what is the largest square footage of any singular building you have on this site right now?
Currently on the plan, it shows 11,000 square feet.
Okay, and that's 2-story?
That's single story.
Single story. And as I understand, you're withdrawing from all applications assessor's parcel number 125-27-610-024, which would be at the southwest corner of Starlight and Azure. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I appreciate you having the landscaping on your east property line adjacent to those residential lots. I think that was a big concern of the neighbors. The only thing that I would like to add, and that would probably be appropriate to the SDR, would be some sort of time restrictions, so that the neighbors and myself are assured that this would be an office-type complex. Would you be agreeable to, say, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yes, sir. It's intended these would be owner-occupied. The market that we're attempting to reach are the doctors, the chiropractors, and those who generally have those hours,
Okay, then I
yes.
think that would be appropriate on the SDR. If not, I think the attorney can slap me around. and tell me
Commissioner
what-
Dunham, I think we need
Sorry,
some
yeah.
clarification on that lot.
If you may, staff's having some problems here. If they're, because we don't have a record of them excluding a lot, do we? No.
Okay.
So if we're excluding the lot at Azure and Tenaya, which is where the 11,000 square foot building is,
Southwest
No, ma'am.
corner of
It's,
Starlight.
okay, then that's where the parking is. In which case, we would need a variance for parking to, no?
no, ma'am,
So then-
we've withdrawn that entire parcel completely.
Oh, so that's the parcel that would have made it look like a L?
That's correct.
Almost, yes.
Yes.
So you've taken that out?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's just straight across now?
Yes, sir.
Yep, gotcha.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Scott?
If that's the case, I think we probably need a condition, Margot, if that's, was part of their original application, if it's included in these APN numbers that are listed, and like item 16, we probably need a specific condition indicating that that
Right,
parcel is
right.
out.
And we're going to have to take, yes.
Okay.
And then, so we were still talking about a time restriction and removing that one parcel. So I'll give Margot some time to formulate a condition somewhere to the appropriate application.
Thank you.
Other than that, unless somebody else has some...
Any more
concerns.
questions or comments by the board?
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn?
I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Brown, for contacting me because I feel included in this. And I think it's wonderful when you have a piece like this and you've got your neighbors' support, and you will have my full support on this project. And I look forward to working with you on many more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion on item 16.
On item number 16, General Plan Amendment 26004, make a motion for approval, subject to all staff conditions.
And if I may, we would just add the condition that parcel 125-276-10024 shall be excluded from this application.
There's a motion on the floor for approval with a condition added to item 16. Please cast your votes. And that motion has passed. Item 17.
Zoning 26006, make a motion for approval, subject to all staff conditions.
With the same additional condition?
Absolutely.
Motion on the floor, cast your votes. That motion has passed. Item 18.
Which is variance 26369, make a motion for approval, subject to all staff conditions
With the additional
with the
condition?
additional language.
Motion on the floor for approval of item 18. Please cast your votes. Motion has passed. Item 19.
Which is Site Development Review 26008, make a motion for approval, subject to all staff conditions with the additional language.
Okay. Motion on the floor for approval. Commissioner Trowbridge, I think this is,
And that includes the time restriction from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.? Maker of the motion?
also,
Yes, it would.
this is your opportunity to
Seven
put in
days a
your
week?
condition
If I may,
about...
7
You
days a
said
week?
it's already covered.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion on the floor for approval. Please cast your vote.
Is the applicant acceptable to the time restrictions?
Yes, yes, the applicant is.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
where are we putting that on the SDR? Is that where we're,
That would be correct.
that's probably not the best.
It'll go with the center. In this
Okay,
case,
thank
we
you.
don't have an SUP, so it'll go with the development.
Okay, that's fine.
Motion's made.
Please cast your votes. That has been approved.
And all items go forward to council on March 19th.
Items 20 and 21. Item 20, GPA 26009, applicant Bill Parr Tenaya Investments, LLC, from R Rural Density Residential to O Office at the northeast corner of Bill Parr Road and Tenaya Way. Related item number 21, ZON 26010, from undeveloped R Rural Density Residential, general plan designation to office. Staff?
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, the proposal that you have before you would change the land use and the zoning from residential to O office. Staff finds that the request is inconsistent with the Centennial Hills sector plan and recommends denial. Also, it should be noted that this is just a general plan amendment and rezoning. There is no site plan application attached to these requests, and so consequently, if approved, a site plan would be required at a later point in time.
Thank you very much. Applicant?
Again, for the record, Jay Brown, 520 South Fifth Street, representing the applicant, and one of the principals, Mr. Wade, is here. This property is also on Tenay and a very short distance north, as Mr. Wade will explain in a moment. And again, because of the long history of this property, Mr. Wade would like to give you his thoughts.
Mr. Wade?
Thank you. Fred Wade, 10,080 West Alta Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, we appreciate staff's working with us. This has been a joint effort. The property to the directly to the east is in the county, and to the west is in the city. To the north is in the city as well, and parts to the south are in the city. This is part of the last portion of these county islands. This parcel was annexed in with the corner piece located here. And we've decided to move forward on this project for the following reasons. We attempted some time ago to find an appropriate residential use, and there was simply no viable commercial market for that to build a home or a series of homes consistent with the area. We then worked with neighbors and staff in both the county and in the city and realized that, again, much like the Tenay and Azure piece, if we were to construct professional offices that looked like homes, that provided some additional landscaping, we feel this is a very important intersection. If you look at Centennial, Centennial will be widened. It is a thoroughfare. Those properties would benefit from additional landscaping and improvement. So although we respect staff's recommendation for denial based on the general plan amendment, the areas to the east and to the north are in the R&P. This parcel in particular is RE. We've looked at a variety of uses and feel that this, again, would be an appropriate use. We've had 3 neighborhood meetings. Only 3 neighbors came. I know we had some additional cards that were sent in protest. The 3 neighbors we met with were in a general feeling that an office professional, single story in nature, that would complement the area would be appropriate.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the board?
I have a couple of
Vice
questions.
Chairman Trowbridge.
If I could. The use of this parcel for office purposes seems acceptable. I understand there's significant concern by the residents about the addition of a daycare center in that area. Am I clear in my understanding that if a daycare center was to be built on this parcel or the structure to be used for a daycare center, they would have to come back and get a special use permit?
You are correct. Again, there is not a site plan or a special use permit attached with this application, so they would have to come back in a public hearing.
But they could go forward with developing low-intensity, standard office-type use?
No, they would still have to come back
So
for a
for
site plan
anything
review.
beyond this, they have to come back anyway?
Correct.
Okay. And at that time, do we have any architectural review over the look of the buildings?
Yes, we would look at the elevations of the buildings.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments by the board? Commissioner Truesdale?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I understand the nature of this being at the off-ramp, and I don't disagree that this is a single-story office property, and obviously the neighbors seem to be in support of that because we're not having people piling here. I would have a little concern if we were going to start, when this plan comes back in, if this is something other than the office market type of product that you've shown us on the adjacent property, because I think that I can support, and I think it's appropriate. It's this transition to this R&P that's east of here, and probably one of the jewels in that area, which I know those neighbors are very concerned about the future of their neighborhood. So I just wanted to put that on the record, that, because the office, I understand some of the things that we require special use, I'm not so sure is what is intended by this GP change.
Certainly, and we concur completely with that.
Thank you. No more questions? Commissioner Steinman. And then Commissioner Evans.
I'd like to know, was there any concern of the residents in the RE on Bill Parr about potential traffic on their street? As these 2 properties will probably be developed going forward, did they
make any concerns, and do you have any potential solutions to that you're thinking about?
Yes,
Even
sir.
though we're not in the site at this time, I think it's important to understand this.
No, and I appreciate your comment. It certainly was discussed at length in our neighborhood meetings. The genesis of those comments was really when we brought the discussion. In full disclosure, we told the neighbors we had interest from a daycare operator at that time. We held our neighborhood meetings. We have since withdrawn that from any discussion at this point. We've indicated to the daycare operator if they want to be on the property, they will have to file a special use permit and come back at a later date. We do not have a sealed deal with them yet, but we hope to in the future, but it remains to be seen. But your question about traffic is important because, again, these residents along Bilpar are in that true rural preservation. This is the Gone Farm here. We've had discussions with both traffic departments at the city and at the county of potentially vacating these front portions of Bilpar, which would provide additional protection to those residents who live along the Bilpar corridor. That's not part of the application before you tonight, but it has been discussed, and we would be willing to accept it as a condition. We're going to continue those discussions into the future.
And if it would be a condition, would you please go over for me where your entry to the subject property would then, how would you access that property at that point?
I believe it would be consistent with the current location of Bilpar. Bilpar would be vacated, but it would be appropriate, given the distance from the intersection, to keep the entry to the development there.
Just so I understand. Then you'll block it off down a little further.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes, thank you. As a matter of disclosure, Mr. Brown and Mr. Wade, I agreed to meet with them yesterday, I believe, and they gave me an overview of the project, and that gave me a little better understanding of what their intentions were. At that time, I did not realize that there wasn't an accompanying site development plan, and I'm always reluctant to push the button yes on a general plan amendment to change the general plan or to change the zoning without knowing what's going to be built. And I think that's one of the legal protections when you develop, particularly in a surrounding residential area. The argument could be made, I think, that if the general plan were amended and if the zoning were changed, the legal parameter for the site development review would be less intense than the requirement for the other two. If I'm not mistaken, the general plan amendment requires a supermajority. So essentially, I would be agreeing, if I voted yes, to change the zoning and to change the general plan without any indication of what it's going to look like, what the architecture is going to look like, and I'm very reluctant to do that. I also have some concerns about the if it were on the corner, I think I'd feel better. And as this interchange or this is developed, it may be appropriate, but I do have some hesitation at this point.
Thank you for your comments. But I think that comfort level can be eased because no matter what, if we do approve the GPA and the zone change, any type of request to build on this will still have to come back before us.
Correct. Certainly.
Quite.
A public hearing.
So I
Well,
feel
it may have to come back before a public hearing, but the legal parameter is not the same. And the staff had suggested strongly that they accompany this with a site development review, and that was rejected. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions or comments by the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on item 20.
I'd like to make a motion, but I, at the same time, would like to acknowledge the merits of my colleague, Commissioner Evans' point. And in the future, I know we can't require it, but in the future, I'd sure like to see those site development reviews come forward at the same time. So having said that and feeling that the comments we've made regarding the likelihood of a daycare center being successful, I hate to cast any aspersions before we hear a presentation, but I anticipate some red lights if there were a daycare center to come forward. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion regarding item number 20, General Plan Amendment 26009 for approval, subject to all staff conditions.
Motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. That motion has passed. Item 21.
zoning 260110. Make a motion for approval, subject to all staff conditions.
Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. And that motion has passed.
It goes forward to council on March 19th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items 22 and 23 are related items. Item 22 is MOD 25974, applicant owner Northwest Estates LLC et al., to amend the land use plan designation from ML medium low density to MFM multifamily medium residential at the southeast corner of Lone Mountain Road and Pulley Road. Note this application has been amended to include a request to amend tables 1 through 5 of the master development plan. Item 23, SDR 25487, to replace a portion of a 308-lot single-family residential development with a 296-unit multifamily residential development. Staff?
Proposal is not compatible with nearby single-family development, and staff recommends denial.
Applicant?
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. Dave Brown, 6554 Paul Shade Court, here on behalf of the applicant. What you have before you is a major modification and an amended SDR for a portion of an original SDR on 38.6 acres. The application is for the northernmost 16.4 acres to change that to multifamily medium residential. We are not asking, originally we just came forward with an amended SDR for the northern 16.4 acres. Because we don't, on the blend of the whole 38, we're not asking for more than 12 units to the acre. However, once that application was accepted, staff called back and said that we need to file a major mod because we have attached units, and attached units aren't allowed in medium-low residential. So that's the reason for the major modification. As far as staff's recommendation for denial, because the multifamily medium residential is not appropriate in Lone Mountain, as you can see, this is the Lone Mountain West master plan as it exists today. We've got two other instances where this exact configuration happens. We've got multifamily medium next to medium-low residential in two other areas, and we're asking for the same thing. There is, however, 15 acres contiguous to our parcel that is low residential right now. However, that's vacant land, and we've got a letter of support from that landowner for our...
Could you please submit that to the clerk?
Our site plan shows 12 two-story buildings, and those are 24 plexes and 4 18-plex three-story buildings on the 16.4 acres. The 2 stories are limited to the southern half of the site, and then the 3-story buildings are on the northern half of the site. We've provided, our open space we've provided is 233,900 square feet, where 98,000 square feet is required. So we've almost doubled the open space required on this plan. Our parking required is 583 spaces. We provided 614 spaces. No waivers are being asked for. We tried to design this without any waivers and try to make it as palatable as possible for the area. What I'd like to show you now is what is approved on that site and what we are proposing on that site, and why it is more palatable to have our design than what's approved on the site currently. If you look at a line of sight drawing, which would be from the existing single family up into our site, you can see that this 2-story home is existing, would be an existing Lennar home. They have an existing slope in their backyard of about 20 feet, and then a 10-foot retaining wall up at the top. The line of sight now, if it was built out to what's approved now, the residents would see nothing but a wall of house in their backyard. It's approved a 3-story, 35-foot tall home, 5 foot off of their back wall. What we're proposing is the worst case with a 3-story condominium unit at 33 feet tall. The same house, the resident looking out of the back of the house could barely see the tip of one of our units. The line of sight is much better for these residents. They're not looking at a huge wall because we've pushed the units back 99 feet. The height of the buildings are also we've also reduced the height of the building from 35 down to 33 feet for the 3 stories and 29.5 feet for the 2 stories. The architecture is much more palatable, as I'll show you now. Originally approved on there is the Richmond American 3-story barracks-type buildings. We're trying to provide a similar theme to what's already been approved in Lone Mountain West. With the, if you drive like the corner of Hualapai and Alexander, you'll see the Warmington homes, the nice contrasting colors, the nice Tuscan architecture. That's what we're trying to provide here. There are several factors which make this site unique, and why we tried to be as creative as possible with this site and still make it a palatable neighborhood. Around 2 sides of this project are existing leases for gravel pits, and so I think we have a much more compatible product with those pits than the single-family residential. Also, the 30-foot elevation difference. I think this picture tells it all. If you can zoom in on this corner here, you can see the existing slope in the backyards. This is the existing Lennar development. The top of this wall is above the top of these homes. So if you put that 3-story home right at the back of the wall, they're not even going to have daylight coming in past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the last and final challenge with the site was the water pressure zone. Since we're up 30 feet, we need to provide a pump station to get water pressure up there, and that's a moving target also. It moved from about $1 million with the original estimate up to $3 million. So that's another challenge with the site we're trying to overcome. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward. Mr. Brown, if I could ask you to step aside. Sure. There are 2 microphones there, so feel free to occupy both microphones.
Hi, I'm Lisa Choika, 4323 Hollies Hill Street, Las Vegas. I represent the Lone Mountain Vistas 5 Homeowners Association, and we are 77 homeowners who are extremely strongly opposed to this project. It starts with just the notification. I don't know where the cameras are, but the notification range for the original proposal only touched, because of the way that it circulates around, the radius of it only touched 241 homeowners, when in fact, if you are looking at this area and how it's used, because everybody who lives in this area can not access Lone Mountain Road because of the pits are there, we all have to use Cliff Shadows Parkway to drive. So it doesn't only affect those 241 homeowners, it affects everybody who lives west of the 215 and north of Alexander. Once we found out about this, we started notifying each other about it, and very quickly we were able to protest pretty strongly, officially with faxed letters and such to you guys, that we do not want this project. We did see on your site, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. We did see on your site this letter from the developer's representative stating things like they anticipate very quickly 100% occupancy. I think we are all very well aware of occupancy issues in homes. I'm a mortgage officer. I'm married to a realtor. We know there are lots and lots of vacant homes. In this particular area, they are talking about the southeast corner of Pooley, which doesn't exist yet, and Lone Mountain Road. At Lone Mountain Cliff Shadows, just half a mile or so away, there's a development that was originally sold as townhomes that they had to change to leasable units because they couldn't sell them. Nobody wants to live right by that pit. I would be really shocked that they would reach 100% occupancy quickly, as they state in their letter. Regardless, you're talking about 296 units at the far end of an area that only has access to Cliff Shadows Parkway. We will not have access to Lone Mountain as long as the BLM has that pit land. And we don't have emergency vehicles that can access there, no fire trucks, no ambulances, nothing. So we have property value issues, we have occupancy issues, but we have really, really strong traffic issues, as he said, water pressure issues. All over the board, the homeowners in that area very strongly support the staff's recommendation to deny this project. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't
Thank you
mind.
very much.
Lisa,
Yes.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I wrote your first name down. I did not get your last name. I apologize. Did you see that display where he was showing the line of sight?
Yes,
between
and to me, that's just a non-issue. We're not worried about what
Okay,
those homeowners
as long as you
can
saw
see.
that and understand that, Ward 6 is me. I really want to hear what you folks have to say, but I
Thank
also
you.
want you to understand the displays that he's giving you probably for the first time.
That I did see that. To me, that's just a really minor issue compared to all the other issues that
All right.
have to be considered.
That's
first
all I
and
want to know.
foremost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, just wanted to mention, there were 53 protests recorded on this item, so
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Odell, ODLE. I live at 10773 Tuckermans Avenue. And actually, the last picture that the gentleman showed was looked like from the berm in our backyard. So as far as the line of sight and the privacy issues, one concern that me and my wife do have, the primary reason we bought the house, Lennar salesperson did show us the original planning for the development, which is just right behind our back wall, the 17 acres where these multifamilies are proposed. And our original plan for the berm was to terrace it and put a pool at the bottom and a patio on top. So there's privacy issues come in the way of Lennar homeowners as well. So if you can't see over the wall, and all you can see is the top of a condominium or multifamily complex, the privacy issue goes the other way. If they can see down into your backyard, things like that. And like the lady Lisa said here, basically when you get off the 215 and follow Cheyenne, when it turns into Cliff Shadows, you have to make a left on the Peaceful Dawn. Lone Mountain dead ends. So that it would tie up huge traffic. I would anticipate huge traffic congestion in the area. And I would also just worry about property values. I would worry about the rent that would be charged in that area. Like she said, just on the opposite side of Cliff Shadows, there already is a condominium and another unit further down on Alexander Road as well. And there's a lot of other issues, too, that I know myself and my neighbors are concerned with. So we definitely oppose it and moved it to support the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Michelle Bachman. I am the president of another Low Mountain Vistas Homeowners Association. We have 148 homes in our association, and I'm here to represent and oppose that this change would happen.
Can you put your address on the record?
Sure.
please?
It's
Thank you.
10667 Mystic Seaport Drive. All of that.
Proceed.
I feel it's inappropriate for the neighborhood. You're going to be sending high traffic through a low-density area. So some others have touched on that. And as he did point out, this location is the edge of town. This Pooley Road is the disposal boundary. Putting that many people on that edge of town, you're going to ruin what you have out there that people use for recreation, for hiking, for bike riding. You put that many people out there, and it's just going to ruin it by a lot of traffic, congestion, and noise. The condos, again, that was mentioned that they aren't selling. The project that was the Cliffs, that was east of this location, they had to turn into rentals. And there's also an article that was in the RJ as recently as February 8th with condos. The market isn't in Las Vegas anymore. They're actually auctioning them off. So there isn't a market for this type of product. Some alternatives. I know people are always looking for alternatives to it. If they want to change the zoning on it, an alternative if they want to do single-level twin homes or duplexes and focus them on the 55-plus to replace the 30 acres that they rezoned for single-family that was along Alexander in 215. The reason I see this as a potential market is there's been articles in the newspaper about the Southwest booming because of all the baby boomers. They want to retire and they want to go somewhere warm in the winter. So this would also be an alternative, a smaller community instead of having a Sienna or a Del Webb, that you'd have a community that would be 55-plus. It would also add some tax base without adding children to help the schools. That's all I have.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Mark Carr. I live at 4532 Don Peak, which is in the Monument subdivision, just to the south of the Lennar subdivision that the gentleman was making all reference to as far as site visibility and that type of thing. Our subdivision, which this development extends to the south, one will run directly behind our subdivision, was one of the first subdivisions that were built up there. It was zoned for 6 units per acre, which was the original zoning for the subject property that we're talking about. Approximately a year and a half ago, Lennar was able to go in, change the master plan at that time from 6 units to 12. Within a year, 18 months, now we're back at the table asking for a major modification to the existing densities again. I lived in this valley 22 years. I'm not against growth, and I think these folks have every right to be able to develop this property, but they knew what the zoning was when they acquired it. Everybody in this valley has the same problem. We all have issues. We know what's going on with the market. It's pretty obvious that they're trying to solve their issues because they bought at the top end of the market. To increase the value of this property, they really have no choice but to increase the densities. The original renderings that I saw at the neighborhood meeting represented, to me, really a bare-bones project. This is supposed to be a for-sale condo project with no garages, only covered parking. As some of the folks have already spoke about tonight, the access to this area is extremely limited. Cliff Shadow is a major highway into the area. There is no way out right now because Lone Mountain does dead end. I understand that within a couple, 2-3 years, the proposal is for a major intersection, interchange at Lone Mountain and 215. Until that happens, there is only one 2-lane highway, one way in and out to access this property. It's a huge concern. Having lived there for going on 5 years, I have an extreme concern on how this will tax the current infrastructure within the area. I can tell you that my neighbors within the monument, which is on the west side of the 215, and will be directly in front of this proposed project, we already have issues with water. In the summer, the water is lukewarm. I'm talking about the cold water tap.
I'm going to ask you to kind of wrap it up, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, in closing, I would say that the water pressure right now is so low at some of my neighbors' homes, it is essentially a trickle as it is. But I certainly concur with staff and would highly recommend denial of this request.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing that, we'll close the public hearing. We'll have the applicant come back up while he's on his way. Is there any questions or comments by the board? Commissioner Steinman?
I asked Mr. Brown when I met with him this week to provide that drawing of visibility, because I had a suspicion that what is approved for that location was not very compatible. And obviously from those drawings you see that those people in those Lennar homes are looking at their own wall plus a big building right up against the wall. And so when you redo this property the way it is, those people will actually see some blue sky. And I felt that in doing that, you have taken off what I always thought at this site was a very big negative of building those homes so close to that wall. I also believe that Lone Mountain is truly going to become a street someday, and I don't think it's 10 years from now. I think the applicant has to finish Lone Mountain up to their site as a half street.
That's correct.
According to the conditions here. So they have set up their property so that the main focus of the property is at Lone Mountain. And that's where their office is and their recreation center and so on. So I think they've made an effort to take the burden off the people to the rear. The whole water situation, it would bother me too if I lived up there, but it seems to me that some solutions have to come to that water situation by the water district, because they are obligated to supply water to all of these people up in that area. And I'm sorry to hear that this is happening, and I'm sure you tried to work with the water district on this. I know that these applicants, as Mr. Brown stated, have to spend a lot of money for a lift station, to get the water up to that property. So my observation is that for the people right up against this property, this is a big improvement to them. They are not going to be having people look in their yard like they did before. Those people are back so far, they don't really have access to the backyards at all. And so I think from that standpoint, it is a better situation for them. Now, one can argue that, oh, these are apartment dwellers, and I don't want apartment dwellers in my neighborhood. But let me tell you, friends, we all have to live together, and if we plan things properly and put them in the right places, the mix will work. I think Lone Mountain being open in due time will take the pressure off of Cliff Shadows. There's no doubt about that. And yes, the interchange is scheduled for, I believe, I found out today, approximately 18 months to 2 years from now. That interchange is next on the drawing board. So that's going to be opening up the situation over there. So those are my comments relative to this property.
Thank you, Commissioner Steinmetz. More
I'll
comments?
chime in here.
Commissioner Dunham?
I listened to what Lisa and Chris and Michelle had to say, and on your recommendation in showing up tonight, I'm not going to support this application. But I would warn you to be careful of what you ask for. You may get what you ask for, and it may not be what you want. So whatever the outcome of this meeting tonight is, I would want you to think real hard and maybe get with Mr. Brown and look at those renderings and really take a look at it and stand in your backyards or stand wherever you stand and look west and take a hard look at what he's telling you could be the site and what he is proposing the site to be. I think part of my job up here is to listen to you folks, and without some sort of support from the neighborhood, Mr. Brown, it's going to be very difficult for me to support you on this application on a major modification. But being that said, again, I want to warn you that you may get what you ask for. But I'm going to go along with you folks tonight because I believe that with the 50-something written postcards that we got and the fact that you took your time out of your lives to show up tonight, I respect that and would support you in not supporting this action.
Vice Chairman Trowbridge?
Yeah, I think this is the second time that the residents in that neighborhood have sent representatives down to speak in opposition to this proposal. I too have to congratulate the applicant for making some fairly significant adjustments to the project as originally proposed, even though what is being proposed is more than what was originally agreed to. You know, the movement of the structures away from that tall wall is a nice move. Some of the issues that the homeowners brought out are very valid and I don't think are going to go away. Providing the major access off Lone Mountain will do nothing except make Cliff Shadow even a busier street in the morning and in the evening. I think that the issue of public safety to get into what's going to be a fairly high-density development up at the top of that hill there is a safety problem. You know, while I too checked and heard that the opening of Lone Mountain is supposed to occur in the 18 to 24 months time frame, I've been around long enough to know that 18 to 24 months in the mind of certain engineers, none that are here, and certainly not Commissioner Dunham, don't work out to 18 months. They come out to more like 36 or 56 or 96. You know, that's just the way they work. And so, having said that, I'm going to have to oppose the project, although it's got some excellent points to it. But I do think at this point it's premature, and I would probably take a different view of the project once Lone Mountain does in fact get open, because that would eliminate my major concern, which is that for safety and access of emergency vehicles, as well as trash trucks and things like that have to get back there, and the additional traffic burden that would be placed on Cliff Shadow. So my concerns will go away as Lone Mountain opens up. But for right now, I just can't support it, even in the, you know, I'm willing to take the heat of all the homeowners except when they're right. And this time I think they're right.
Any more questions, comments by the board? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Item number 22, Item number 22, modification 25974. I'd make a motion to support staff recommendation for denial of this request.
Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. Motion for denial carries. Item 23.
Site Development Review 25487. Make a motion to go along with staff's recommendation for denial of this proposal.
Motion's on the floor for a denial. The yes vote would be for the denial. And that motion has passed as well.
Both items go forward to council on March 19th.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Item 34, DAR 25763, applicant owner William and Deborah Burgos to allow a proposed 19.25-foot-high, 2,400 square foot detached accessory structure, Class 2 barn/storage shed, where a 16.25-foot-high, 1,090 square foot accessory structure is allowed at 6161 Joe Marcy Drive. Staff?
An alternative design would allow conformance to the zoning code. Staff's recommendation is for denial.
Applicant?
William Burgos, 6161 Joe Marcy. I returned today with what this panel has asked for. I was here earlier, or actually last month. I've got the neighbors. I think some of the panel has asked for the neighbors' signatures to approve it. I've got that for you. I also have some pictures that you guys requested, the brochure pictures, and then I've got also some pictures of other structures of similar nature that are around the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Would you like me to give that to somebody, or?
You can submit them to the clerk, yes.
Okay. Are you doing that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Comments, questions from the board? Seeing no comment?
Seeing none, I'm ready to make a
Make a motion?
regarding,
If I may, do we have, for staff, do we have corrected site plan or elevations on this? Do we have a date on that so that we can reference that in our conditions?
January 29.
Okay. If I may, then, if the maker of the motion wishes to refer to, subject to substantial compliance with elevations submitted January 29th, 08.
I have one question. What is the color of the building going to be?
I did make a mistake the last time I was here saying it was going to be red in color. Actually, it's going to be Nevada gold, or that tan color, to blend more in with the...
Good choice. There's no further
No further
discussions.
discussions. Motion, please.
In regards to variance 25763, make a motion for approval subject to all staff conditions
As amended?
as amended.
Motion's on the floor for approval, subject to all staff's recommendation and conditions. Please cast your vote. And that has passed.
And that's final action in the absence of an appeal within 10 days to the office of the city clerk.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell Debbie we said hello.
She's right there.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Archie. Item 35, Mr. Chairman, I'll be abstaining on this item as I am in a contractual agreement with the applicant in another project in North Las Vegas.
Thank you. Item number 35, special use permit 21131, which is open to public hearing. We are having, the applicant is the Mountain View Estates. The owner is Shung Huang Han and Yung Ju Han. They're requesting a special use permit for a proposed 40-foot high, 14-foot by 48-foot off-premise sign at 1550 West Oakey Boulevard. Staff report, please.
The sign appears to comply with the zoning ordinance, and staff recommends approval. Additionally, staff notes the sign is very close to the minimum 300-foot separation from other off-premise signs, and a condition of approval has been included which requires the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the separation requirement by providing a survey which has been stamped by an engineer or a surveyor prior to the issuance of a permit.
Thank you. On behalf of the applicant?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Michael McDonald, 49 Carmen Boulevard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Happy Valentine's Day. We're back here today at the request of this board. We had some conversations last meeting with some concerns of cut-through traffic on the proposed site. We worked with some members of staff and also many of you we had opportunity to speak with, but not all. The major concern was originally going to be if I have the overhead, please, was the possibility of cut-through traffic that would interfere with the sign. Some members in the discussion, we moved the sign closer, and when we did it, we also turned the face. We had proposed to move it to get it over to a 55-foot height and actually move it so it's closer. It would actually protect the propane tank. It's hard to say tonight. Protect the propane tank that is there. And I haven't even had a drink yet. I apologize. I'm buying, okay? So we'd actually turn this sign. It would be facing more of a face of the east and west rather than north and south, so it would not have a freeway read. So the proposal, and working with staff, we have no problem with getting this wet stamped and make sure the distance requirements. If I can comment on that one more time. With the overhead, you'll see exactly what staff is talking about as far as the 300 requirements. We fit just within that box, and working with the Commissioner and Commissioner Truesdale on some of his concerns, I believe, I haven't had an opportunity, but Rick Henry, the Vice President of our corporation, I believe he met some of you, he talked to some of you and met you on site. And our request tonight is if we could move it to where the Commissioner has kind of suggested that we meet as far as protecting this, so it wouldn't be hit through cut-through traffic, and also we'd be asking for a 55 rather than the 40-foot, and we'd tuck it in there and have the wet stamp survey.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anyone
sir.
else in attendance wishing to speak? The public hearing is now open. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and turn it over to Planning Commission members for discussion and possible motion.
If I may, just for the record, when you start your discussion, the notification is for a 40-foot high board, not a 55-foot high board. So we would have to re-notify in order to consider that larger structure.
I apologize. I thought we had our engineer deliver off the 55-foot. Apologize, Director Wheeler. I'm at the pleasure of the board. Whatever you wish.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the applicant going back and looking at this because there were significant site issues that I think needed to be addressed. They've come back in with a location that's appropriate, safer, and as I indicated before, it wasn't in opposition to the billboard on the site. It was more the site location for safety purposes,
Yes,
and
sir.
I will support this application.
Thank you, sir.
Do we know exactly where this sign is going to be? Do we have a drawing that shows exactly where it is?
Yes, sir. Commissioner should be in your backup, I believe.
Your
Where is
advice,
it? It's an offset pole. Okay. I'm not sure I have that. And also, staff mentioned that we have to have, was it an engineer's certificate for something before the permit can be issued? Tell me about that.
This one?
That would be a survey document indicating that the sign complies with the separation requirements. They would need that prior to getting building permits, or in this case, sign permits.
Are you having suspicions that it's not 300 feet?
No. I mean,
Okay.
it's just, from
It's
the
a
map that
formality.
you provided, it looks close.
Okay.
and-
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, we have a remaining question, that is the issue of the proposed height limit. It's advertised as 40 and they're requesting 55. Do we need to?
You would,
Okay, if we're working on it?
Mr. Vice Chair, you would need to renotice that. If it were lower than 40 feet, then it would be appropriate to proceed tonight.
As
But
soon
if
as
it's
I
higher
would
than
go 55, would you settle for 35? It's going the wrong direction, huh?
We're going the wrong way, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think staff recommended approval as it was submitted. I think the applicants moved the location of the pole where it's safe and appropriate, and I would make a motion to follow staff's recommendations for approval with all the conditions.
If I may, Public Works?
That's it for, I mean, if they have to submit another application, then that's a technical question.
If you want to
that I
go
wasn't
any
aware of.
higher than 40 feet, you'd have to submit a new application for the, we'd have to renotice it 55 feet.
But-
Just renotice it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess
Yes, sir.
we can
We could
either...
abate.
I think our
or-
initial issues with
to the-
this application was not with the height of it. It was with the possibility of traffic cutting through there and perhaps clipping those propane tanks. But I know that with your background with Metro as a bike officer, you've learned not to trust people in vehicles. And so I knew you'd correct the problem.
I mean, a couple times, Commissioner. Yes, I have. Thank you.
So it's the height issue that we need to, I guess, come back with and renotice.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Director Wheeler?
I think we could get that renoticed for 313, if I'm not mistaken, gentlemen. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so a motion to
On the
table is...
Well, we'd obey it to the 313, and then what we would do, we would keep the same case number, but renotice it with a note that the height requested is 55 feet.
And Margot,
Okay.
Margot, just
Yes, sir.
just for the record, Mr. Chairman, you may want to amend condition number 4 to be 3 years. Since
Yeah,
we've
we'll
changed-
catch, I got that, but we'll catch that next time.
Okay.
I'll move to obey SUP 25131 to March 13th.
Motion's been made. Please cast your vote.
Hold it.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Items 37 through 41 are related. Item 37, ZON 25295, applicant owner Sahara Investment LLC from C1 Limited Commercial to C2 Commercial, General Commercial, adjacent to the north side of Sahara Avenue, approximately 570 feet west of Fairfield Avenue. Item 38, SUP 25262 for a 795-foot building in an AO Airport Overlay District where the height limitation is 175 feet. Item 39, SUP 25263 for a proposed mixed-use development. Item 40, SUP 25264 for a proposed non-restricted gaming facility. Item 41, SDR 25261 for a proposed 72-story mixed-use development, including a 1,300-room hotel, a 67,800 square foot non-restricted gaming facility, 254,240 square feet of commercial use and 40 residential condominium units with a waiver of the downtown Centennial Plan development standards for the building to line requirement. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, before you go forward, I'm going to abstain on this item as much as I represent the property owners just north of this site and do own property within the notice area.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, as you're aware, the original plans for the Allure site included 2 residential towers with ground floor commercial. Tower 1 has been constructed, and the applications that you have before you this evening are to revise the second tower. What is being proposed, as has already been read into the record, is for a mixed-use project that will include a casino, hotel rooms, and residential units. Regarding application number 37, the rezoning, we find that consistent with the future land use designation, recommend approval of that request. Relative to the special use permit for the airport overlay, the applicant has submitted proof of filing with the FAA in accordance with the requirements of Title 19, and we recommend approval of that request. Relative to the request for mixed-use development on the site, we find that consistent with the prior approval and with the adjacent land use and recommend approval of that request. relative to the special use permit for non-restricted gaming. The property is located within a gaming overlay district, and so consequently, staff recommends approval of that request. And then finally, the site development plan review application. The applicant is requesting a waiver from the build-to line requirements, as they are locating active commercial uses on the ground floor, and the setback area is going to be proposed for pedestrian uses. We are recommending approval of that waiver, and so consequently, we recommend approval of all the applications.
Thank you very much, staff. Applicant?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, and Greg Borgal, 300 South 4th Street, here on behalf of the developer. Also here with me is Mr. Stephen Fink, who has been coordinating the development process, if you have questions appropriate for his consideration. We certainly appreciate the staff's very favorable comments. The agenda item describes the project adequately. As staff points out, this has always been conceived of as a two-tower project overall. What you have before you is the final plans for the development of the second tower and the changes in the character and detail of that tower. Also, as staff remarked, the first tower is substantially complete. This is a developer who's able to deliver on his promises. He has reviewed the conditions of approval and accepts those conditions. We would, however, ask for one minor language change, which we did discuss very briefly with staff, on condition 12 of the SDR, which relates to the lighting. The purpose of the lighting restriction, of course, is to prevent light from spilling over to residential uses. There are residential uses to the north of this property, multifamily residential uses, and we understand the need to protect residential uses. However, this condition really has been crafted in a way that works for low-rise buildings. If you have a one- or a two-story building, you want it to be shielded and aimed down so as not to be visible to or bother the neighbors. When you have a 72-story building, similar to the other large mixed-use projects on the Strip, the way to shield them is, in fact, to aim them up, because a down-shielded light on the 72nd floor will not, in fact, protect the spillover to the residents to the north. So we would ask that the comment about "and shall be downward directed" within condition 12 on the SDR be deleted, or if you wish, substituted with "upward directed." But we understand the idea, which is shielding, so that they don't spill over, and we certainly accept that. But it's typical to light these larger towers in an upward direction, as we've done elsewhere on the Strip. And I guess in summary, I would say we're just kind of proud to be here with a project that is a true mixed-use project, similar to what the rest of the Strip does. We really feel that we're helping to bring the high end of the Strip north into the city. This is going to be comparable on a smaller scale, but comparable to the real mixed use that's being built at City Center and Echelon and elsewhere on the Strip, and we're just kind of proud to be here. And we'll take your questions.
Thank you very much. Is that first tower occupied as we speak?
I don't think we have the...
Yes, they are having closings. They have their TCO right now, and they're moving forward with closings, and there are people occupying right now.
Can we have your name and address for the record?
Stephen Fink. I'm with Sahara Investments, LLC, the owner, 9710 West Tropicana.
I know I've seen people coming and going in there.
My impression was they're moving in, but it isn't, to a large extent, not occupied, but people are moving in.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Hi, my name is Larry Wright. I am the acting president of the Naked City Property Owners Alliance. We're here to support Mr. Fink and his company and Mr. Fonfa. We feel that his ambitions are a little limited. I'd like to show you something.
Just place it right in the center on the
right
table.
Over that.
There you go.
Right. The properties in the green are the members of our alliance. We feel that we want to support what he's doing, but we want to make sure that there's not a negative impact on our property here. And there are actually more members of our group. They just haven't sent in their paperwork yet, so they're not on the chart in terms of being colored. We just want to we ask that before you grant him absolute permission to do what he's doing on a limited basis, that we would like an opportunity to get with him to maybe expand what he's up to and go back into the neighborhood a lot deeper, a lot further, and that's it.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Quinn.
Mr. Borgell, I think this is a beautiful project. I've lived in this area my entire life, and being that I've raised a wonderful disabled young man, this is the greatest way for a person with a disability to live. I'm curious as to how many units are available for sale for a disabled patron, being that everything's inclusive for their needs. What is the percentage of units that you have available for sale for someone with a disability?
I'm sorry, that question never came up before, and Mr. Fink will have to respond. Understand that the residential tower is next door. There's only a minor number of residential units in this tower.
Thank you.
Commissioner Quinn, what we have in this tower are 40 residential pure condominium units. Otherwise, there are 1,300 hotel and or hotel condo units would be available. But at this point, we haven't finalized the actual design of the final units. We are showing them as what we have there, but they can be adjusted, and I'm sure that we will provide what would be reasonably required of us.
So
in that
it would
regard.
be your pleasure then, if a disabled person wanted to buy one as a
Absolutely.
build-out, that you would meet their needs?
Absolutely,
Because
we would customize
I
it.
just find this type of living for someone in a wheelchair is great because everything's right there, and they don't have to go too far to get just about everything. So I commend you, and I welcome you to the
Thank
area.
you very much.
Any more questions, comments? Commissioner Steinman.
I spoke to Mr. Borgell, and Mr. Borgell knows that one of my items I like to look at is things called traffic. And in this case, we have, the continuing monster being created on Sahara, and somebody's got to do something sometime. And I am all for this project. So I'll put that on the record right away. But I do believe there needs to be a little thinking about how access off of Sahara in all directions is going to be into this property, knowing that MGM is creating a project across the street on the El Rancho site. And maybe my friends in Public Works can comment about whether there's going to be coordination aligning exits and entrances to these properties and with a light involved, because I find this no different than going down the Strip and the issues that are there of getting in and out of these mega resorts. I consider this the same situation. So can you give us a little insight on what's going to happen on Sierra and what we're going to have out of this?
Sahara is the subject of quite a bit of discussion amongst the various municipalities and entities. There has been a recent Sahara corridor study that's analyzed a number of alternatives, but in specific respect to this site, a signal has been proposed providing access into this site and access to the site to the south. So that is currently being discussed with the city, with NDOT, with Clark County, and it is anticipated that that would go there. The actual cross-section of Sahara is still a little bit in flux at this time, but the access issues with regard to the signal are looking pretty positive.
Is that a condition of these?
The condition is that they continue to work with RTC on the Sahara corridor study, and that implies the signalization as well. It is something we're all considering.
If we don't get this, I see them exiting out of this site on Cincinnati to the Strip and down to that high-level corner to try to get out of here and go east. And so this, I think it's a necessity, and I don't know how much teeth you can put in it to get it happen.
We do have a requirement that they do an addendum to the traffic study, and that is definitely part of the traffic study, is the signalization of this corridor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Steinman, if I could amplify that a little, it probably won't surprise you to know that I am also retained as a consultant on the property across the street, and I am quite confident that they will desire signalization and that the mutual traffic studies will reach a conclusion that will give adequate access to both properties.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Burgell. I recall a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, you were the representative for the Ivana Trump proposed high-rise, which was, I think, even higher than this one, across Sahara, the old Foxy's and Holy Cow site. And I recall at that time there was some discussion with your then client of taking that curve out of Sahara right there at the Strip. And I'm not sure how that was going to be achieved, but I remember there was a discussion about that intersection being problematic, and traveling that frequently, and I'm sure you're well aware, the road curves around right there at the Strip. And the problem that I see is, I don't know whether maybe they should prohibit right turns or a different signalization for the right turn onto the Strip. But as you continue on to the Allure Tower, often I think the little bumps in the road or the paint has worn thin, and so you end up with people switching from lane to lane, and I would speculate a fair number of traffic accidents on that corner. So when I continue up Sahara and I get to the existing tower, my question is, how do you, is the primary ingress and egress right off of Sahara, and would you then have a sharp right turn, or is there some sort of a curve onto the property? And then is there a staging area for traffic in terms of people who are living in the residential section, or a valet type setup for the hotel and shopping aspect of it? And any assurances that we won't have a queue back onto Sahara in some sort of a traffic jam? And then next, in your backup, and I appreciate your lengthy letter, you talked about on item 2, you say at the very least we would seek a left turn in only signal from the eastbound, I think you say from eastbound Sahara at or near the current median cut at Sahara. Would that mean, when you talk about an additional signal, would that mean that there is a signal right beyond the Sahara and Strip into the Allure building itself? And if so, I'm curious about the studies, because essentially what you would have is a light at Paradise, a light at the Strip, and then a light at your project, all within a relatively short distance. And my hope is that the RTC and whoever does the signalization can somehow get it all together at some point, so we don't have red light, red light, red light, red light. And I'm sure that we all want to see the traffic flow. Can you address any of those questions for me, please?
Sure. The answers are yes, 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 and no. I'll go back to those.
Okay.
Those are the answers you wanted, however, then they're correct. And with regard to the traffic signal proposal, if we could go to the overhead, it probably would help. Well, first let's start here, which is one of your yeses. The access to the existing residential tower, which is a substantial part of the overall project, is here, and as you can see, it proposes what I'll call normal, somewhat angled in and angled out relationship, so there is no direct right turn there, because this will, we think, forever be an uncontrolled, meaning no signalized intersection. And it serves all of the residential uses. The primary entrance to the new property will in fact be off Sahara, although there is good access off Cincinnati. And it is located at the location where there is an existing median cut, which, in my opinion, and of understanding we're always subject to traffic study, is not presently sufficient or appropriate to serve the property, and therefore is the logical location for the signalization, which would, we hope, match up with the property being developed to the south. This distance from this signal to the Las Vegas Boulevard signal is more than enough to meet all standard separations. It's not too close under either NDOT or city rules for signal separation. And there should be no difficulty in flighting traffic with time signals tied back to Las Vegas Boulevard. There is, of course, a problem between Paradise and Las Vegas Boulevard, but that's because both of them cause intersections with major north-south flows. There'll be no major north-south flow here. We're talking about access to two properties, which will be covered again in the traffic study. With regard to the queuing problem, as you can see, that can hardly be an issue. We have the whole length of the property to queue here and the driveway here for any queuing there, except these people, by and large, will go directly into the controlled garage and would have no reason to queue. So, as I said, the answers to your questions were yeses where that was a good answer, and no for the expected queuing onto the Sahara.
Thank you. That gives me some level of assurance. I got to tell you, though, I keep hearing that we're trying to fix the problems with traffic signalization and whatnot, but I travel primarily surface streets, and as I go up Okie, which I believe changes to Wyoming, it's very frustrating in the morning to be stuck, or in the evening or afternoon, rush hour, 20 minutes behind a train, and when the gate finally goes up, then you get a red light. I'm thinking, well, the opposite traffic has had 20 minutes, and then you'll get another red light at Highland and another one at Rancho or Martin Luther King, and I'm thinking, something's wrong with this picture. So my hope is that the new technologies will allow greater access. But I do want to congratulate and thank you for when putting in the tower. First of all, I think it's an exceptional location, and I think it's the belief of many that Sahara and the Strip there will become the new place, and certainly for construction purposes. There were a lot of naysayers, and I go past there every day, and I was pleased that with your construction staging, I never had a problem. And given that it's a relatively large project, I was somewhat surprised and pleased by that. But having said that, the other question, and it may be speculative, but Mr. Borgell, I think you're the representative for City Center as well. Is there any, have there been discussions about, as that corner gets built up, about overhead walkways and things of that nature?
Yeah, by the way, City Center happens to be a different legal entity. There are some commonality of partners, so we're talking about MGM-Kerzner partnership here, which is not City Center, and I assume that's what you're asking.
Well, different pockets, same pair of pants.
Fair enough. Well, some of them, in fact, are from people who don't have pockets because they wear burnouses. But leaving that aside, yes, there have been discussions toward that end. That's very dependent upon the studies which your public works people have pointed out. Because, for example, as one example, one thing that's in the new book that's come out would be an urban interchange at Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard, which means the road would go up. Well, for through traffic. That affects how you design things like pedestrian crossovers. So yes, it's been discussed. Yes, the expectation is that there'll be pedestrian crossovers in the area, but that will necessarily be subordinate and after we decide what's going to be done with the street.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no more discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion. No?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure.
Let me go ahead and close the public hearing. Questions or comments by the board are finished?
Before he makes the motion,
it's not about pants, is it?
I'm not touching. Is the Sahara couplet still an issue? And this is probably Public Works. Is this still an issue? And is it an issue with this property to solve the problem? Tell me about what's happening with the so-called Sahara couplet.
The Sahara Corridor Study proposed a number of possible alternatives. One of those alternatives was a couplet design that would have Sahara one-way eastbound, I believe, in the current alignment, and one-way northbound on a separate new road kind of behind this site. Through meetings with the RTC and public meetings where the public was invited to attend, that alternative was let's say deprecated. That means put way down on the list of priorities. It is extremely unlikely that would be the alternative selected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No more questions or comments. I'll take a motion on item 37.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My motion on item number 37, I believe it's ZON 295? Is that
Correct.
My motion would be to follow the recommendation of the staff for approval.
Motion on the floor for approval. Cast your vote. That has been approved. Item 38.
SUP 25262, once again, following the recommendation of our staff, motion for approval.
Motion for approval on item 38. Please cast your vote.
And Mr. Chairman, if we could ask if the applicant's in agreement with all the conditions?
The condition change would be on item 41.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are in agreement with all conditions on all items, save and excepting, we will reiterate our request for the minor change in condition 12 on number 41.
41. Thank you.
I'm unclear about what we're doing.
Apparently, your counsel wanted me to
I made a
acknowledge we
motion
accept
for
the
approval.
conditions.
Right. Normally on the SUPs, we like them to acknowledge on the record that they agree with the conditions, just so that there's no...
I thought we were real clear about that. Okay. You agree?
I'm clear, and we agree.
Okay. So where was I?
Your motion for approval on item 38.
Item 38, the SUP 25262, motion for approval.
Motion for approval on the floor. Cast your vote. And that motion has passed. Item 39 is an SUP.
SUP 25263, once again, following the recommendations of the staff, motion for approval. Mr. Borgel, you agree to the conditions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Motion for approvals on the floor. Please cast your vote. That motion has passed. Item 40.
SUP 25264, following the recommendation of the staff, motion for approval with all conditions. You agree with all the conditions, Mr. Borgel?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Motion's on the floor for approval of item 40. Please cast your vote. That motion has passed. Item 41, and this is where item condition number 12 would need to be adjusted.
I think Lynn has.
Yes, all we will do is delete the line, "and shall be downward directed," and that's the only portion that will delete. The rest of it will stand as is.
Looking for a motion on item 41
Yes.
with the staff amendment to condition number 12.
The motion would be to follow the recommendation of the staff with the language change to condition number 12 as indicated by the staff, and that's agreed to by the applicant, right?
Yes, sir.
Motion for approval.
Motion for approval on the floor. Please cast your vote. And that motion has passed.
Commissioner Truesdale abstained on all of those actions, and this matter will go forward to the City Council on March 19th.
Thank you. Good evening, and we want to express our appreciation to staff for working with us on this project. We hope you'll all like when it's done.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Our next items 42 and 43. Right after item 43, we will take about a 5 to 7 minute break. Item 42, VAR 25220, applicant owner Hector Camacho, to allow a 201 parking spaces where 250 spaces are required at the southeast corner of Page Street and Bonanza Road. Item 43, SDR 25148, to add a proposed 20,400 square foot general retail development to an existing 16,250 square foot auto repair garage, major with waivers of perimeter landscaping buffers to allow a 5-foot buffer along a portion of the south property line where 15 feet is required, and a 5-foot buffer along a portion of the east property line where 8 feet is required. Staff?
The parking variance and landscape waivers indicate that this development is too intense for this site. Staff recommends denial.
Thank you very much. Applicant?
Hector Camacho, 1501 South Maryland Parkway.
You want to tell us anything about your request?
I don't know. That's the new project. This is assisting. I don't know what.
Can you do me a favor and speak into the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a. Sorry.
We can
This
see
is a
it.
new project. This is the system project. Going to be on that property.
Can you turn that upside down, the smaller picture? Or both of them, please? Thank you. Thank you. And could you repeat what you'd said, sir?
Okay, the first one is the new project, and the second one is a system project.
Okay. That's all you'd like to say on it?
Well, I requested for a waiver in the parkings.
Okay.
Because I was going to put a big, like auto service in half of the building, that way I can comply with the parking, and I showed to the city council, and he suggested maybe do something like this, that way, like the auto repair.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward at this time.
Hi, my name is Shirley Friedman. I'm from Encino, California. I own the adjacent property to Mr. Camacho. I am one of the principal partners. My manager sent a letter over here to the chairman, and I'd like it to be read into the record if possible after I make a couple of statements. I don't know how to do this. Is this correct?
That is correct. You're welcome to read it in.
No.
Okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
trying to show you the
Yeah, go right ahead. We see it.
We came up here today because of this meeting, and we own this small area here, which has a child care school called Child Time. And Mr. Camacho has put in garages around us, and now he's trying to put in some more stores and parking. Not only are we in the danger, but there is a school across the street, I believe it's called Edwards Elementary School. When he was building the garage, there was a lot of problems with him and the city that I don't want to address. It was addressed in the letter. But while I was driving around today with my husband, I don't think Mr. Camacho is being very honest with you, because there's a for sale sign on his property. And one of my associates called up the broker. Mr. Camacho is planning on subdividing this property. He is selling off the existing portion of the current facility, and he's going to build on the other facility, and has told my associate, his broker has told my associate, that there is no hearings, everything's been approved by the city, and it's ready to go, and for a very substantial price, you can buy the auto repair shop. So we have had numerous discussions with Mr. Camacho in the past, and I like him as a neighbor, but I think you've got to get down to the truth, and if I could give this letter to the chairman, and please read it from my manager, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Please submit it to the clerk. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item? Please come forward at this time.
I am Mr. Friedman, 16161 Ventura Boulevard, Encino, California. DT Mark Properties Limited. I'm a principal. I just want to clarify that in putting in any facility with any shopping facility, if the gates and the access to Diamond Head is open, the driveway there will be directly across from the driveway of Edwards Elementary School. The intersection of Page and Diamond Head must have one of the city's highest concentration of youth pedestrians going through that intersection every morning and every afternoon. Putting any significant traffic there in what has been, until Mr. Camacho decided to build his auto care facility, which he's now looking to unload, was a residential, calm, bucolic neighborhood, which now has this enormous wall, a graffiti magnet we saw today, and which is not being very well cared for. And I think, well, ultimately, the danger to the children more than anything else, and this disruption to their education and to their quiet enjoyment of, to all the neighbors' quiet enjoyment, is something that the board should take under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll take comments and questions from the board at this time. Mr. Camacho, would you like to respond?
I don't think it's against the law to sell half of the property to build the other one, because the economy is so bad. What I try to cut as overhead and try to do most of the other property, pay how much, use much of my cash. That way my payment be low. That's the only reason I sell the property, and I don't think there's nothing wrong to try to sell half the property to build the other one.
Thank you very much. I just want to let the applicant know, we're not going to read that in, but we have submitted it through the clerk, so it is part of the record on this application. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the board?
I'd like to read the record, read the letter.
Okay, we'll get that to you. Commissioner Steinman?
When I went out there, I'd just like Mr. Camacho to comment. First of all, if you're going to sell one to build the other, I think you have to subdivide the property, it would seem to me. You can't just do that. There's got to be a subdivision involved.
That's what I'm working on it.
Okay, secondly, it's 201 parking spaces where 250 are required. And on your present auto repair lot is at least a dozen unlicensed vehicles that are just sitting there, taking up space, at least that many. And on the back of the property, there's a lot of people assembling back there with music and alcohol, even during the day, and I'm wondering how you're controlling that particular situation, because that back there is right across the street from the school.
During business hour, I never see an alcohol. I don't know nighttime because I don't drive in,
No, it's a
during the
daytime.
night, but during the day, I never see it.
Well, I was there during the day, and you were open for business, and there they were. And it seems to me that you're not controlling your property by leaving unlicensed vehicles just parked out there and then letting people go in the back and do what they want to do. And I'm wondering, if you're going to have all these vehicles on there and you're already short parking, how it's ever going to work?
We're working with the code enforcement to try to enforce the tenants to take the car as not as disabled or don't. They are repair shop. Okay, if some car is disabled, we're working with the code enforcement and my tenants to try to rid of it. Whatever car is not in a proper
Those
condition.
cars have been there for quite a while. Some of them have. And so
I spoke to the code enforcement today, and he said that most of the car was not running. It was not longer over there. And that conversation, it was maybe about 3 o'clock today.
Okay. Well, I see problems with this property and the way it's being maintained and the shortage of parking, because if you do get retail in there, you're going to need parking. And you just can't be filling up the other lot with a lot of junk cars. It won't work. So I have a problem with what you're trying to do here with this thing.
Well, the only proposition I got is if you only use half the part for retail and the other half for oil change and stuff like this, I need a lot of less parking. It's up to the city if you want me to have it another auto center or have it retail. Okay,
Well, you're interested in keeping the retail. That's what you want.
I want to keep it at retail, but if you're going to have, that's the reason, then the beginning of my project is going to be about 60% retail and the other 40%, that way I can comply with the parking, do auto service, oil change, stuff like this. I only need a few, I don't need that many parking for that. Okay?
Okay.
I can.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Truesdale? Commissioner Truesdale?
I understand the applicant's desire to maximize his property and do all of those things, but I think we lose sight of the fact that this is adjacent to a daycare center and an elementary school, and having it paramount to be an auto storage facility, and with what's before us, I'm really concerned that this is the wrong approach for this property. And I look at the condition of the property, I look at the uncertainty of what we're being told is it's almost like whatever you guys will agree I want. I look for the applicant to bring us a detailed plan of what he wants to do with his property. I don't think this rises to that level at this point. So I couldn't support what's before us.
Thank you. Commissioner Quinn?
I'd like to concur with Commissioner Truesdale with the school and that, but I think what strikes me the most is when someone travels from California to spend the evening with us because it's so important to them to protect what they've probably worked a long time to own next door to you, sir. And you will not get my support on this project.
Real quickly, just to...
I want asking for the record, what support for the waiver of the parking, because it's a C1, and I can put the building up except if I complies with the parking, right? That's what I asked him. Because I don't understand why you support or not.
You're not complying with the parking.
Okay, if I don't comply for the parking, if I make the building comply with the parking, what...
You'd have to resubmit that back through the application process.
Sir, and then your building would have to be smaller for the parking to be right.
No, because I've been checking with the code. If I do auto change, and the building it can be the same size, a little bit bigger, and with less parking space required by the code.
I don't know, but we're not going to redesign the site right here up at the podium tonight. So what I would say after this, you may want to get back with the staff and see how you can submit that idea as well. But just a quick field check on January the 16th, 08, it said a field check was made on this site. On the northeast portion of the site, the applicant proposes a 20,400 square foot commercial development, which is currently fenced in and littered with debris and trash. On the northwest portion of the site is an existing 16,400 square foot building that is utilized for auto repairs, but also goes on to say that the parking area for the auto repair business is littered with debris, parts, and immobile cars. So, and the landscaping is also not maintained. So it tells me the existing as well as what's proposed is not being maintained. Any more questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Evans?
I want to say something before we close it. With these people who show up today, we got an argument in the beginning. The project, I don't see anybody, any neighborhood, they come to post. These people, you got something because I put the garage. They're not liking for the beginning, and they want me to put a free wall to replace that wall. That's when it come all the problem. It's money wise because I not build a free wall for them. What he did, I had to build couple maybe a feet away from that wall, and he left the older one. That's the only revenge they taking because I don't see anybody from the neighborhood right here complaining. Okay. All right. These people come from California, sadly for that one, but it's only one person, and the city was aware that was a problem. This building department it was aware of the problem we got with these people by that wall because they want me to pay for. That's the only reason it's here. I don't see anybody else, and the neighborhood complain about the property.
Well, Mr. Camacho, they have the right to come up there.
Yeah, I know. It's a free country, and that's what I want to put it clear. It's nobody from the neighborhood here, and any other people. The people live in California. They live in different.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans?
Yes, we're looking for a variance for parking. I'm prepared to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the staff for denial of that variance. Agenda item number 42, VAR 25220.
Motion's on the floor to follow staff recommendation for denial. Please cast your vote. And that motion has passed. Item 43.
Item 43 is the accompanying site development review. Once again, the staff has recommended denial, has made sufficient reasoning for that, and my motion would be to follow their recommendation for denial.
Item 43, motion for approval to follow staff's recommendation.
For denial.
Yes, a yes vote will be for the denial.
Okay.
Cast your vote.
Commissioner Simon?
And that motion has passed as well.
And that denial will go forward to the City Council and their March 19th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
We'll take about a 7-minute break here.
It's like a training.
Is that right there?
Mr. Truesdale, would you like to face us, please?
Let's get serious now.
We're going to begin with item 47. Item 47, VAR 26108, applicant owner Mark Chapman and Betty Chapman Living Trust to allow a proposed 14.09-foot-high detached accessory structure, Class 2 garage with a 2.47-foot rear yard setback, where 13.27-foot-high accessory structure with a 3-foot rear yard setback is allowed at 1620 Curtis Drive.
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, the proposed structure requires variances from height and setback requirements. It should be noted that the structure is already partially constructed. However, it does not meet the criteria for a variance, and consequently, staff recommends denial of the request.
Thank you. Applicant?
I am Stephen Black with Asylum Design, 6325 McLeod Drive, Suite 6, here representing the owner. Just real quickly to walk you through this, we're about 6 inches into the setback on the rear side for about 9 feet of the length of the building, and the rest of the building is out of the setback. There's some gates up towards the front of the building that are about 7 feet tall that help screen that garage from the road out front. I'll touch real quick on the height. Just the way that the code reads to calculate the height, that goes to the middle line of the slope. And since the slope on the house is steeper than the slope on the garage, that makes that height come down lower than the garage. We're about 9 inches above that required height. But if you look at the overall height of the house compared to the overall height of the garage, we're a little over a foot underneath that height. So just wanted to make those clarifications. We also, in addition to the letter signed by 2 neighbors that was submitted with the package, we've got another letter signed by several more of the neighbors in the area that I'd like to submit.
Please submit to the clerk. Thank you.
And they're in support of our application.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Truesdale.
This was started without a permit, right?
That's correct.
And you're the designer of it?
No. I was hired after the fact.
Okay.
To help with this process.
Because as a designer, I mean, at what point could anybody think this is an attractive addition to this property? I mean, the fact that it's in the setbacks, it's a metal barn structure. I just don't see where this is. It's not compatible. I don't know what the pleasure of the rest of the board is, but I can't support this request.
Any more comments or questions? Commissioner Steinman?
I just want to know, why does it have to be so high if it's a pure garage? Is it purely a garage, or are we doing other things in there like our business?
It's purely a garage. The reason for the height is you have a 10-foot door on the front, but also off to the side there's a smaller garage door that opens up to the backyard. And in order to get one garage door to get over top of the other one, so both could be open at the same time. We had to increase the height.
So the side has a garage door on it also?
Right, to provide, so you can get access to the
That's a
backyard.
normal size, 6, 7 foot high garage door. That one right there by your hand.
Correct, it's 8 feet.
8 feet. And these others are 10 feet.
The front one is 10 feet,
What
yes.
are we putting in there? Just out of curiosity. Do you know?
Just vehicle storage. They've had issue with break-ins at their house, so they wanted just something to put their vehicles in.
Yeah. I think, I just don't understand the reason for the size unless that picture that's on the screen now depicts what business they're in, and they're going to store their business items in there and so on. That's what I'm suspecting, and I don't understand the reason for a garage door to the south or to the east, whichever it is, I forget.
It's basically because between the house and the garage, there's only 6 feet clearance, and so if he needs to get anything bigger than that into his backyard for whatever reason, he wanted to have that ability. And because he does a lot of tinkering, he has tools and stuff that he uses in the garage. If he wants to get those in and out without going through, the front garage door, he can go through that side garage door.
We have no problem with a garage door on the side of a garage, right? Is that correct? We have no problem.
That's correct. We don't have a problem with that.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments by the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on item 47.
Mr. Chairman, I move to follow staff's recommendations for denial.
Motion on the floor for denial of item 47. Please cast your vote. And that motion for denial has passed.
And that is final action in the absence of an appeal filed with the city clerk's office within 10 days.
You may want to look at normal 3-car garages.
Thank you.
Item 48, VAR 26226, applicant owner Vincent J. Roth to allow a 1.5-foot side yard setback where 3 feet is required for an existing detached accessory structure, Class 2 shed at 612 Orridge Place. Staff?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, this accessory structure also requires a variance from setback requirements. It does not meet the criteria for the variance, and so consequently staff is recommending denial of the request.
Applicant?
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I want to point out that...
Your name and address on the record, please.
Oh, I apologize. Vincent J. Roth at 612 Wardridge Place, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89145.
Thank you. Continue.
I apologize. It's my first time here.
Not a problem.
I did take a look on the website, did note it's quite sophisticated technology we have here in Nevada. It's very interesting. I did notice that a few things didn't seem to make it into the materials. A number of neighbors had submitted postcards in support, in addition to what already is reflected there. So I have those here, and the fax transmittals demonstrating successful transmission, all in support. So I'd like to add those. I also, by suggestion of one of the planning commissioners, he suggested any further support that I could bring with me to do so. I have a half dozen additional letters from more neighbors also in support of this item, and also the head of the board for the Homeowners Association has appeared here as well. Thank you for that. Great, thank you. And I do want to mention, though, that I think the Planning Commission did a great job of sort of laying it out in their analysis, explaining the accessory structure. I noticed that for all the criteria, everything is satisfactory except for this one item for which I'm asking for the variance. And they do note that I did pull a permit at the very beginning of this process. They also noted that I installed a 1-hour firewall that the building department had requested, and they also noted that I had some letters of support. But they made a comment here in their analysis saying, had the applicant consulted with the Department of Building and Safety before purchasing a larger shed, the need for a variance could have been eliminated. Therefore, staff recommends denial. And then they go into their explanation about this particular code regarding, a self-created hardship. And I want to point out this is incorrect. I had been speaking with the building department since the beginning. My very first conversation was back in September 17th of 2007. I spoke with a gentleman named John in the building department who explained to me that if I got too close to the neighbor's wall, then the 1-hour fire rating would be required. So I had been complying from the beginning with the direction that I'd been receiving from the building department and the planning department. And each time through, when something was requested of me, I did it and complied. When I was requested to put a firewall in, I did so. When I was requested to come in and revise my plans, I did so. When it was explained to me by the planning department that I would have to then proceed with a variance request, I did so. And I'm here, requesting this one item. Lastly, if I may, I want to point out, this is a small development. These are small houses. They do not have any garages. We just have carports. And just walking around my neighborhood, I live in Jonathan Glen 1. There's Jonathan Glen 2, two separate developments. But just this development alone, I went around and I took a bunch of pictures of neighbors' yards. This is a very common configuration. I can submit these if you'd like.
You can set them right in the middle of that, it should be marked in the middle of the podium, and we can see those as you place them.
And you can see, this is a very common configuration around the neighborhood where sheds are either right up against the homes, right up against their walls, right up against their walls.
Spread those next ones right up underneath. There you go. Perfect.
And now I put these here. I can't tell you whether any of these neighbors either erected their sheds at a time when this requirement did not exist, or did they erect them without going through the efforts I have gone through to comply and get permitted and variance and such. So I'm not speaking to that at all. I'm simply demonstrating that this is quite a common configuration throughout the neighborhoods. Shed, 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 up against the wall, up against the wall, up against the wall. Two sheds up against each other's walls. And, it goes on. I can show more if you'd like, but I'm just simply demonstrating.
You've expressed your point.
Yes, thank you. And I believe that, in the Planning Commission's report, when they make this comment that had I consulted with building, this could have been eliminated, therefore staff recommends denial, I think that if the Planning Department had known of my earlier conversations with building and had known that I had been consulting with building, they might not have put that comment, and thus they might not have gone into that next page where they explain why it should be denied.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Please come forward.
Do you want that? Yeah, okay.
How are you, ma'am?
Hello.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you.
Name and address for the record.
Barbara Boggs, 705 Jonathan Glen Way, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89145. I'm on the board for the Homeowners Association. We are in total support of this shed being approved and hope you will see to approve it.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Quinn.
For me, it always speaks volumes when your neighbors support what you want to do, so I will be in support of this item.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Evans?
I have to ask about public safety, and I'm assuming that's a lot of the issue today. I note that you put in the 1-hour firewall, and there's a letter of backup in our backup from you explaining some of the challenges that you've had in this application. But I see where you're 1.5 feet from the side yard property line, and that's where the variance comes in.
That's correct.
How close is the nearest home?
That is the distance from the nearest home.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not sure whether the woman who's the head of the HOA or on the board, it's been my understanding in the past that when you have those kinds of distances to another single-family residence, it may very well, in fact, impact the neighbor's homeowner's insurance. That's part of the reason for the setbacks, is to ensure that, if one building goes up, it doesn't spread to the next, and that's why they have the firewall ratings. And if I'm not mistaken, in the backup, I think you said that this was a tough shed or something of that nature.
Yes.
From one of the big box stores, I'm assuming.
Correct, from Home Depot.
And that's another issue that I have, not with you, sir, but for whatever reason, these sheds are being sold, and I'm told that, that there's no indication that you may need permitting or that they just can't be sited anywhere. And I've had some discussions with a couple of the managers of these big box stores, because in fact they're either selling or leasing these pods, that are simply containers. And I've seen lots of them in the older neighborhoods where people are plunking them down in their driveways and essentially using them as a garage. And it's pretty unsightly, and I don't think it's fair to the neighbors. I guess my question to our staff, even though it's outside of our purview, would be any way we can put the stores on notice that will, that I hate it if there's being representations made that you can make a several $1,000 purchase and that you can just put it anywhere you want. And I don't know whether that's, Mr. Flynn, is that something that we can consider making a letter or making those concerns known?
I'm sorry, Ms. Wheeler, were you going to respond,
Chairman,
or do you want me to?
I'm not Mr. Flynn.
Sometimes we're interchangeable, but not tonight. While that is
Mr. Flynn?
a great suggestion, to put the big box stores on notice that not only do the prefabricated structures, but also the other services that they sell, such as water heaters, roofing, things like that, do require permits from the building department. Hopefully they are using licensed contractors, and licensed contractors would be aware that permits are required. But certainly in some cases, such as this, where they're buying a prefabricated shed, that may not always be the case. But I don't know what we can do other than making those regulations known through the city website.
My thought is that we really need we really need to put it out there that just buying one of these sheds, and some are better designed aesthetically than others, that you can't just put them anywhere you want. And my concern is somewhat about the aesthetics, but I think if your house burns down and that shed catches fire and it catches the next house on fire, that we haven't done our job, and that's the reason I believe that the code exists in terms of the setbacks. And, we had an application here a few months ago where there was some speculation that people may have been living or renting one of these little shed structures, and then there was some discussion about maybe it was just a playhouse, which to me was even more egregious. But and we've had lots of, particularly in the older neighborhoods, lots of instances of people living in travel trailers and fifth wheels on the property. And our concerns, I think, were well-founded about a month ago when someone died. Someone died in a travel trailer when it caught fire. It was not sited in the proper place, and the fireman couldn't get through the door to save the guy's life. So these are the concerns. I don't think that they're just bureaucratic rules that are made up to make your life difficult, but to ensure that your neighborhood doesn't go up in flames and that the people who live next door to you don't have their homeowner's insurance canceled or the policy premiums skyrocket. So those are some issues that I have.
Can I respond to that, Commissioner Evans, if that's all right?
Yes, you may respond.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. There were a number of points that you covered there, so I'll try and get back to the first one with regard to my next-door neighbor, whose house is where the shed is closest to. Hers is one of the first letters of support, and in her letter of support, I thought it was quite interesting that she had mentioned that she actually likes the shed there because it cuts down on the winds into her yard. So there was a sort of fortuitous benefit to her property as well as mine. I think we all have noticed the winds the last few days here in Vegas. In fact, I flew in from California today. My plane was delayed because of the winds. So my neighbor actually likes the shed. With regard to safety, I have already installed the firewall, and if there is an additional measure, I, of course, assure you I will carry that out. If the Building and Safety Department wants some further measure, as I think the commissioners have seen, I have taken the steps asked of me, so I will, of course, if there is another measure to ensure further safety, I will do that. With regard to insurance, I'm not as familiar. I know that the entire association, all of the houses are covered under the same insurance. So Ms. Barbara Boggs may have better understanding of whether the insurance concern exists that you're raising. So if
they're not single-family homes, you have your own homeowner's insurance policy.
It's true, but the association has a blanket policy that covers all the homes.
Yeah, but whoever owns the house next to you has if there's a mortgage, they probably have a policy. In any event,
Yeah.
I think you're talking about a policy for the homeowners group.
To address
versus-
to address what your concern is, you're concerned that if the shed catches fire and her house burns down, does that change insurance? And what I'm explaining is all of the houses are covered under that same policy, so that if a house burns down, the insurance will erect a new structure. I can't speak to whether that would change insurance costs, but Ms. Boggs may be able to do that.
And then lastly, just along those lines, I noticed there's a pitch to the roof of the shed. You mentioned the winds. You know, we get flash floods and rain here. Does the drainage from that, will it run into the neighbor's yard, and will it end up creating a flood for them?
No, the pitch is to the front of my property, and I'm not sure if you can see it from the pictures. Now, in the front of my front wall, right before my carport, all the walls have in the center, there's an opening where the water runs out. And there's enough distance, as you've seen from some of the other pictures, other people's sheds are right up against the wall. Mine is at least far enough away from the wall that water will run off and run out to my property, not hers. And then one other thing you mentioned about aesthetics, I don't know if the other commissioners have seen, am I doing this wrong?
We can see that perfectly.
Yeah. And there's certain criteria in the Homeowners Association CCNRs about size, shape, color, and such, which I have complied with, and thus the board, gave a letter of support saying that it complies with their requirements as far as shape, conformity to my house, color to match my house, etc.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Steinman?
Yeah.
And then we'll go for a motion.
We'll go for a motion then. I want to ask you why you didn't put this shed next to your house.
Well, there's a walkway.
Well, why didn't you put it closer to your house than the neighbor's house? Because as I went up and down your street, there are a lot of sheds, and all of them are at least 3 feet away. One of the problems with this one is it's 1.5 feet away from the wall, but it goes straight up to where the eave comes off her house next door, and it's right under that. And so I'm wondering why this is over against her house when it could be over close to your house.
Well, if I moved it it's right up on the walkway. Or maybe I can. Oh, the diagram shows here. See this path. This is a cement path.
I can't see, but
Okay.
I'm looking at the picture, and you already have a green shed up against your house, correct? That thing in green. Is that already? That's already a storage shed.
This is.
We can't see where you're pointing.
Oh, okay.
It depicts a.
This is the green.
Yes.
What's that?
Designates landscaping.
That's what?
Landscaping.
Designates landscaping.
Well, it looked like a shed was sitting there.
There is actually pre-existing before the house was bought. There's a small, 2-foot.
I think it's
shed.
unfortunate that you live there and you have to push everything over to your neighbor, and that's because you've got too large of a shed. That's what caused this whole situation. You created this problem by getting too large of a shed. You put it too close to the house, under an eave overhang from her house. And I think the HOA should be worried about that situation if it kept not only the firewall, but the roof can burn and go up. And there's the real problem that I see with this. So, I'm having problems with this one, let me tell you.
Thank you.
I think it could have been done differently.
Thank you. I
Commissioner. Would you like
appreciate
to-
that. I did provide pictures of quite a number of other
Yeah, they're there, and
configurations
every
that
one
are-
of them has 3 feet.
Pardon?
They're all 3 feet away.
I disagree, Mr. Commissioner. May I have the pictures back?
Mr. Roth, I think you've made your point.
Oh, I
think you've made
apologize.
your
Okay.
point eloquently.
Thank you.
We as commissioners will like to ask our questions, but I think you've answered and justified eloquently. Vice Chairman Trowbridge.
If there's no further discussion, I'm ready to make a motion. I think that Mr. Roth has put together a compelling argument, complete with photographs and letters of support from all of his neighbors, documentation that this is a ongoing practice within this particular homeowners association, a representative of the homeowners association coming in person to support the request. Therefore, I'd make a recommendation in regards to variance 26226 to support the request subject to all staff conditions.
I concur with those statements as well. Motion's on the floor for approval of item 48. Please cast your votes. And that motion has passed.
And that's final action in the absence of an appeal within 10 days.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Feel
Appreciate
free
your
to
time.
walk through the neighborhood again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Item 49, VAR 26236, applicant owner Astoria CE 307 LLC, to allow a 5-foot rear yard setback where a 7-foot setback is required, generally located on the southwest corner of Schomburg Road and Durrell Lane. Staff?
An alternative design would allow conformance to the Cliff's Edge standards. Staff recommends denial.
Applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Bob Gronauer, 3800 Howard Hughes Parkway. I'm here representing Astoria Homes on this item and then the following item, which is item number 50.
Mr. Gronauer, please let me interrupt you for 1 second. I didn't realize item 50 was related, so let me go ahead and read it in, and then I'll let you continue.
Perfect.
Item 50 is related, VAR 26237, applicant owner Astoria CE 307 LLC, to allow a 6-foot garage setback where 5 feet or less is required at the southwest corner of Schomburg Road and Durrell Road. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Commissioners, Bob Gronauer, 3800 Howard Hughes Parkway. What I've done is I passed out an exhibit to you to help illustrate the two variances that we are requesting. With respect to the first variance request, it is to reduce the rear yard setback, as staff has stated, to 5 feet where it's supposed to be 7 feet located. What we are asking for, so I could clarify here for the record, is 2 of our 4 floor plans are asking for a rear yard reduction. If you can take a look on the exhibit that I handed out to you, if you take a look on Plan 1, you can see up in this area here where it's located, it's highlighted in yellow, you can see approximately 4 square feet of an encroachment of that we're requesting for tonight for Plan 1. With respect to Plan 2, as you can see here, it's approximately about a 9-foot encroachment in this area. But more importantly, I think I need to explain to you, is in the Providence Design Guidelines, they require rear yards for RSL subdivisions, residential small lot subdivisions such as this, to have a 3-foot setback minimum for 50% of the lot, and then a 7-foot setback rear yard for the other 50% of the lot. And if you can see on the exhibit, and I could show you on exhibit on Plan 2, you can see here that we exceed the 3-foot rear yard setback requirement because the building's at 5 feet. And where we are supposed to be at 7 feet here for 50% of the rear yard, we actually have a majority of this area up to 12 feet. So essentially, this area here that's highlighted is the encroachment that I explained to you. And because this is set back at 5 feet instead of 7 feet in this area is the reason why we're asking for the variance. The same thing goes with Plan 1 here for, of our footprint. Again, you need to have it 3 feet for 50% of the property and 7-foot setback. Again, we're at 5 feet for a majority of the property, and then we come back to 12 feet in this area. If you take a look at the required rear yard square footage for each plan in an RSL subdivision, you're supposed to have 215 square feet of private open space in the back. As you can see here, we are exceeding it for Plan 2 and Plan 1. So we feel that the variance is justified because actually you're still getting more rear yard space in the back here. And more importantly, the Plan 1 and Plan 2 will only be for the interior lots to the subdivision, not to the exterior lots. They have other setback requirements, and those setback requirements are obviously larger than the setback requirements for interior lots. So with respect to that request, we ask for your approval. The other request that we're asking for, if you take a look at Plan 2, once again, you can see for the garage setback, the design standards for Providence state that you have to either have a 5-foot driveway or less, or have 18 feet or greater. In this instance, what we have here is a driveway to the front of the garage door that's going to be 6 feet, because we have to have, per the guidelines, a 1-foot architectural pop-out out here. So the 1 foot actually in here will be 5 feet from the property line, but because of the garage itself, the door goes an extra foot because of that pop-out. we're asking for the approval for that. Now, we've had this approval once before for another development for Astoria Homes up on Alexander in Lone Mountain West. The approval of this variance for the garage itself will only be for 50% of the lots. And the reason is because of topography on the site itself with respect to the slopes. We're only going to be allowed to do, at most, if we do only one floor plan here for the garage setback, 50% of the lots out of the four floor plans that we have. So we'd be willing to accept the condition for the second variance request on the garage itself to be no more than 50% of the lots can be with respect to this 6-foot setback that we're requesting. And again, it's something that we've had approved before for a similar elevation on another project. However, it's not located in Providence, but it's located up in the northwest area, up in on Gowan and Alexander. With that being said, I can answer any other questions that you may have, and that's about it.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Steinman.
Is this plan in the Astoria Homes item on Alexandria at Cliff Shadows? That one? It's on the hillside?
Yeah,
I think that's where it is.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Yeah, it's not Gowan.
I'm sorry about that. It's Alexander. Yes, Alexander. Yes.
I was just up to look.
Yes.
This is fine. Thank you.
Any more questions, comments by the board?
I'll make a motion.
Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion on item 49.
On number 49, VAR 26236, move for approval, subject to conditions.
If I may, Chairman and Commissioner
Yes.
Simon.
Director Wheeler.
At the discussion by the applicant's representative, I would put forward a possible additional condition that this variance shall apply to interior lots only.
That's fine.
That's fine?
Yeah. We concur with that because that's part of the design guidelines, so that's fine.
That's fine. So amended.
Director Wheeler, would that be added on both items, 49 and 50?
Yes, but I have an additional addition on 50, so.
Okay. Commissioner Steinman has a motion on the floor for approval of item 49. Please cast your vote. That motion has carried. Item 50.
Agenda item 50, VAR 26237, move for approval subject to stated conditions plus further condition by Margot Wheeler.
Again, the additional condition that this variance shall apply to interior lots only.
This one will be 50% of the entire subdivision. Will have the 6-foot garage setback. Because the interior, this will be exterior and interior lots on this one for this variance. I'm sorry for the confusion.
For the garage variance.
For the garage variance, yes.
Only.
The setback
Not the rear.
variance. No, the rear variance was
Is
for
interior.
interior lots only, and the
Okay.
garage setback is for 50% of the lots. We can accept the
So
condition.
no more than 50% of total lots shall this variance shall apply in no more than 50% of total lots.
Correct. I concur.
The variance relating to the garage.
Garage, yes.
Item number 50.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's an approval for item number 50 on the floor with amendments and additional requirements to the motion. Please cast your vote. That motion has passed.
Thank you very much, and have a happy Valentine's Day.
And those are both final action in the absence of an appeal within 10 days.
Thank you. Item 51, VAR 26243, applicant owner Allen Tellis Revocable Trust to allow an 8-foot front yard wall where 5 feet is allowed at 1500 Rancho Circle. Staff?
Staff finds no unavoidable hardship associated with this request and recommends denial.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Quinn?
Goins. Although I welcome you as my neighbor, I live directly behind you. I will be abstaining from this vote tonight.
So noted.
Good
Applicant?
evening, Chairman and Commission members. John Jackson, trustee, co-trustee for the Allen Tellis Revocable Trust at 1500 Rancho Circle.
Thank you.
We prepared a letter, which I think you have before you, together with a plan. It's all very self-explanatory. I would like to address 2 points. The first being that there was quite a bit of confusion regarding what we have built on the property and what we have sought the variance for, and this confusion caused some misunderstanding within the neighborhood. I want you to know that Joseph Miller, who's here, my co-trustee, walked the neighborhood, met with all the neighbors, and explained exactly what it is that we're doing there, together with the plans for the house, and showed the elevations and the setbacks, and really did a good job of getting the neighborhood behind us with few objections. The confusion arises because the property, the house used to, or still does, hasn't been demolished yet, sit on the property facing Rancho Circle. And after we had purchased the property, we met with planning to start the process of designing the house and the walls and the pools and the things we intend to put on the property. And the first thing we were told was that the short end of a property is considered by presumption to be the front yard. And there was no record in the property that there had ever been permission to face the property to Rancho Circle. And if we were going to demolish the property, we would have to seek a special variance or permission to actually continue to front Rancho Circle. And so in the process of designing the house that we intend to build, we decided that that's okay, we'll go with the presumption. And we'll have the front of the property be on the short side of the property. And in doing so, we have now situated the house to be completely different than what exists there now. We have built an 8-foot wall that is in compliance, permitted. It meets all of the codes, all the regulations, and it is our side wall. And it is a result of this having to move the direction of where the house sits. That caused confusion because there are some members of the neighborhood who believes that we were here seeking a variance to approve a wall that we had already built. And that's not the case. The wall that we have already built, and it's in the staff recommendations and it's in my letter, had full city approval, permitted, inspected, and it's been signed off on. I'm sure the question, and some of the questions the neighbor has had, and I'd like to answer them for you, as to why we built that wall in the first place before getting the entirety of it approved. It was our intention that that house would already be demolished. And Mr. Miller and I built a house at 3011 Pinto Lane, and I brought the pictures from that house. And I used to be an attorney. Mr. Miller used to be a CFO. We left those professions to build a house and design a house, and we actually built it ourselves. And it took us 3 years to build it. And our neighbors on Pinto are wonderful people and very neighborly, and they were very kind to have put up with a construction site for 3 years. And if we learned anything when we built that house, it was that we should have built this very nice-looking landscaped wall, which is also what we intend to do at Rancho Circle. We should have built that wall first, so that our neighbors would not have had to deal with a construction site for 3 years, because we really are owner-builders in the true sense of what the owner-builder statutes were designed for. This will be a 2 to 3 year project for us. So, as a courtesy to our neighbors in Rancho Circle, we decided to build a very nice wall, fully landscaped, put it up first before demolishing the house, before taking out the swimming pool, before beginning construction, so that they could be shielded from that entire construction. Unfortunately, it caused confusion. If you have some further questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I think we've addressed them with all of our neighbors. The second point I wanted to make, I probably didn't highlight enough in my letter to you, and that is about precedent. There are walls in Rancho Circle, as evidenced by these two pictures, one right across the street from Ms. Phyllis McGuire's residence, and also at 725 Rancho Circle that exceed 8 feet. They're very plain. One's a stucco wall, one's a cinder block wall. And what we have proposed is a wall that is staggered. It does have some open space. It's open vertically rather than horizontal. We've tried to design something that's attractive, that is consistent with the park-like nature of the neighborhood. And I also want to point out that we're preserving a 50-foot by 50-foot corner of the property to be consistent with sort of the park-like median that exists when you drive into the property. And as you can see from the diagram, the wall we actually built, that we were allowed to build, and that the code allows for an 8-foot cinder block wall, we put some attractive slate on. We also created the vertical open space, and we're not right on the property line. So we have tried to mitigate, and I think I explained that fully in my letter, sort of the effects of the variance that we are requesting, and I ask you to please give our proposal serious consideration.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for or against this item? Feel free to come forward at this time.
Hello.
How are you? Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Everybody else is out except us, right?
We're going to see if we can get with them.
We're working on it, right?
Shortly. Name and address for the record. Your comments,
my name's
please.
Elizabeth Clark Bon Jovi, and I live at 1450 Rancho Circle, which is directly across the street from this property. And I don't think it's been confusion with the neighbors, what the objection has been to this development. I'm not sure how I should place this here. This is a subdivision of the area. Rancho Circle, when the subdivision was first done, it was probably the early 40s. And the intention when they did the subdivision was all the houses along this circular portion of the subdivision, they were all to face into the street, which they all currently do, including the subject property. And what some of the neighbors were getting upset about originally is this is the front of the property right now. This is the way the house faces. What the neighbors had done is they built an 8-foot tall block wall, gray, and they put like a slate veneer on it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're planning and what they're wanting to do is call this the front of the property, which, the rest of us, some of us, think it takes away from, the estate feeling of Rancho Circle, what the plan was when they originally built it. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Take your time.
But now what they're wanting to do, okay, they've already got the 8-foot wall here, the 8-foot block wall. They're wanting to continue that along this portion of the property, so it will be totally closed in by this block wall. And with us living right across the street here, our viewpoint is we just see a plain block wall. We don't see any openings in the wall. And that's, what some of the other neighbors are upset about, too. They feel it's going to look like a prison, a block wall prison when you drive in, and that wasn't the intent or the feel of the neighborhood. They're supposed to be like ranch estates. So that's what the objection is. They don't want them to build another 8-foot block wall. They don't have a problem with, if they want to use wrought iron, something that would be more open. But just having that block wall is what we have a problem with.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ma'am?
Good evening. Sharon Greenbaum, 950 Rancho Circle. I don't know who the other people are that she's speaking about, but for 15 years, that has been a dump, and one that is highly visible. I'm so thrilled that these people are doing something with it that I couldn't be happier. I walk that circle every single day. Mrs. Bon Jovi ought to take a look at her fence that's falling down. Anyway, they have done a fabulous job. At their Pinto, I went over and looked at that, and it looks great. So I would expect that they're going to do a wonderful job here. I also really appreciate the fact they put the wall up so that during construction we don't have to see that. And as they said, when I walk around there, Phyllis's wall right across the street is 8 foot high. Tompkins in the back is 10.5 feet high. Other people have dense shrubs that are 8 or 9 feet high, blocking out their front yard. This is the oldest gated community. We love it there. The people are generally easy to get along with. I think this is a big boost, and I wish other neighbors would do the same thing in the circle. But I'm for it 100%. I think it's a big improvement in the neighborhood. And then why should they be denied the wall when other people have it inside the wall? I mean, in this community already. It doesn't make it look prison-like. It actually is very, very attractive.
Thank you very much, and happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you.
Yes, sir.
Richie Klein, 840 Rancho Circle, and I'd urge all of you to approve this application this evening. As Mrs. Greenbaum said, for the last 15 years, this house has been vacant. It's been busted into several times. I don't know the applicant. I did see him at the auction when they bought it from the estate, because I did bid against him, matter of fact. And if the people don't like the beautiful home that they're going to build over 10,000 square feet. So you all know right off the bat they're going to spend several $1 million improving the neighborhood. And if I would have bought it, they wouldn't have liked my trucks and cars and everything else parked there. So I really applaud these people for what they're doing to the neighborhood, and I urge you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll close the public hearing.
Make one more comment.
No, ma'am, the public hearing's closed, and I'll have the applicant come back up, and you can speak to some of the comments that were made.
I do appreciate Mrs. Bon Jovi's concern, and the photo that you can see there, her property is the one behind this black wrought iron fence and the beautiful lawn there. And on the diagram that's now directly under your photo, she sits right here, and she does look directly at the wall.
Is that Ms. Bon Jovi you just put the X?
That's Ms. Bon Jovi who just spoke. And that's not going to change. That wall has been built, and it's fully permitted and approved. And again, at least according to the city codes, we could have built a cinder block wall, and it could have been along the curb, and instead we chose to do something very nice there. And we're opening it up and making it park-like. We do intend to landscape all of that. Each of those columns will be covered in slate. They will have a column cap. It'll be very much like what I showed you earlier at Pinto. But Mrs. Bon Jovi will always look at that, regardless of the approval or denial tonight. That's going to stay there. It's unfortunate that when I first met with the city, I didn't pursue further an insistence that I be allowed to face Rancho Circle. I didn't understand the importance of that in that neighborhood, not having lived there, not having known these neighbors. But that is a presumption, and I think the staff can verify that for you, and that's what I was told, and that's how we proceeded with our planning, that we would have had to have special permission to have and keep that frontage along Rancho Circle, even though the existing house faced that because it was never granted the permission, and we do intend to demolish. Now, if we'd done a remodel, that would be a different story. So I'll leave it at that. If the commissioners have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you very much. Comments and questions by the board? Vice Chairman Truesdale? Trowbridge.
That's fine. Just don't. I think we have a wonderful neighborhood here, and I think that you want to make a grand entrance into a wonderful neighborhood and become a good neighbor. I hope everyone understands that when you put the wall up along the what everyone hoped was going to be the front of the property, it wasn't at your design, it was to comply with the city requirement. Had you had your choice, you'd have oriented your home towards the building. So don't hold it against this gentleman. He's trying to do what he has to do. Rather than have us make a decision which is going to make some of the neighbors unhappy, and in a neighborhood like this, that unhappiness tends to last a long time. That's not a situation you want. If I could be so bold as to make a suggestion, I think that if you were to come back to this board and ask for some kind of variance so that you didn't have to orient your new home, which is going to be a multi-year process, and you do want to do it right, I know, I would imagine that this board would support oriented your home towards the interior. I see a problem with on the side there with entering the property right off of Rancho. You come into the subdivision, you've got a sharp turn right away, and it's just, I wouldn't want to build my multi-million-dollar home with that type of an entrance. I'd much rather go around the corner and have a grander statement. And because you're not too far along in the design process, I wonder if it wouldn't be advantageous to you as well as your neighbors to sit down and just talk for a little bit and see if you come up with some kind of a way to reach a friendly compromise to this position without costing you a ton of money. I realize the wall that you put up was an expensive first step, and to say, gosh, why don't you consider redesigning it? In the terms of long-term relationships, it may be in your best interest, and I'm sure Ms. Bon Jovi would wind up being a wonderful neighbor that you'd enjoy, rather than having somebody right across the street that you're kind of cold with whenever you come out of the house. It's not a good thing in this type of neighborhood.
And I do appreciate your comments and look forward to a good neighborly relationship with Mrs. Bon Jovi. The wall has been built, and we have designed the entire house, spent fees on engineers and architects.
I didn't realize you were that far along.
Yeah, the wall and the house have been designed together, the elevations fit. But I want to say that this is the only neighbor who came tonight to object. We did meet with the other neighbors, and many say they did or they didn't like the wall, but they appreciate that what we're doing, they allow us to do, and they can see the improvement to the neighborhood as well as our property. Additionally, I asked to meet with staff. They indicated to me that they couldn't change their decision, that they did have an objection to our property that had been rescinded, and I think that was the general nature of the meetings that took place over the weekend with the neighbors. So I want you to know we have reached out to the neighbors and we have met with them.
Thank you. Before we go on any further on the discussion, Director Wheeler?
I need to clarify some things. The lots, any lot in the city, is defined as a corner lot that the short side is the front of the lot. The way the house is designed is entirely up to the applicant. The house can face any which way they wish to design it. The city requirements with regard to the wall height is that there is a different wall height limitation on the front, which which the lot here, the short side, is the south side, and therefore the wall height allowed on the south side is shorter than the wall height that is allowed on the street side, which is the west. However, the design of the house, where the front door is, where the driveway is, where the front of the house is entirely up to the design of the property owner. So I just needed to clarify that the discussion with regard to the matter before you tonight is merely with regard to the perimeter wall, not with regard to the home itself.
Thank you. And Commissioner Evans, I want everybody to keep their comments focused actually on the wall, because if we get into the relationships within this neighborhood that go back, I've been here since '63, and I know it's been there too. We could be here until next Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The issue for me is fairly simple. You want to build a wall, and it's very attractive. Unfortunately, when I predate you by a decade, Mr. Goins, so when I was young, Rancho Circle was where all the wealthy people lived, and it's where we occasionally would drive through and dream. Unfortunately, they still won't let me in after 50-some years, so, and it's gated now. It wasn't a long time ago, but if I recall, there are a number of walls throughout there, and where there are not walls, there's all kinds of mesquite and ivy and bamboo, or at least there was the last time they let me in there. My thought is that your wall, as attractive as it is there any thought of maybe putting some kind of shrubbery, cat's claw, something to give it more of a country feel? Because I think that's the major objection, is that no one wants to see a fortress. And yet, if I recall correctly, there are a number of fortresses in there, and one of the charms of Rancho Circle for me is you never quite know when you've gotten around the circle. It's sort of a hodgepodge of pie-shaped properties that are incredibly historic and mostly very, very beautiful. So any way that you can put some shrubbery around the front and maybe make it look less like a fence and more like a wall of green?
Yeah. In fact, I'm glad you raised the issue. In Rancho Circle, we have fortresses. We also have a castle, if you haven't been in there recently. So there is a mixture in there, and there are property owners who have an expectation of privacy that differs maybe from their neighbor, and you can tell by driving by. As you look at the diagram, again, the wall that we're proposing that is a variance is set back from the property line. In two places, it's staggered as vertical open space. But in addition to building the wall before we do the construction, we intend to fully landscape it with shrubbery. It will have a ranchy feel. It will be not lawn covered, but it will be xeriscaped, but in an attractive way with plenty of shrubbery that will blend those natural tones of the slate we're using. The columns will have a desert tan slate
But
to make it
Rancho
that
Circle
ranchy
isn't
feel.
a desert. I mean, it's a high water table, lots of mesquite trees and lots of other stuff
And
that,
we're going to use all that too. My point, I
I
think,
hope
is
you
that it'll
don't
be-
plan on making it look like a desert.
No. I don't know if you've been out to the Red Rock Casino, but where they've used all of that low-lying rosemary to create a feeling
Okay.
of lawn while still, not using. We want to be
Right.
conscious about the water concerns, but it'll be fully landscaped, just like we did on Pinto. It'll have the feel of Rancho Circle, probably more so than many of the properties in there that hopefully will be improved in the next decade, and hopefully we can sort of move
Well,
that.
once again, the issue is simply the wall and the height, and given the unique nature of the community, I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No more questions or comments. We'll take a motion on item 51.
I'm ready to make a motion for approval of variance 243 to allow the 8-foot wall where 5 feet is allowed. And the basis of that is, I think you've made a compelling argument. You have a preponderance of the support of your neighbors, and you're building a very attractive design, and I applaud you. And perhaps one day they'll let me back in there and I can really see what it looks
Give me a
like.
call.
There is a motion on the floor on item 51 for approval. Please cast your vote. And that motion has passed.
And that is with Commissioner Quinn abstaining, and that is final action in the absence of an appeal to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you. Mr. Bon Jovi, we're close to the end of the meeting. We're going to have a public comment section. If you want to reserve some time to put some comments on there, we'll be here. We'll be there shortly. Okay. Item 52, SDR 26163, applicant owner Iglesias Anger Trust, 1997, for the conversion of a 110-unit apartment complex to a condominium development at 2850 South Decatur Boulevard. Staff?
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, the proposed complex that's to be converted is 30 years old and does not meet current parking and landscape requirements. Consequently, staff is recommending denial of the request. One of the things I want to point out, in the staff report, it incorrectly notes that this is a project of regional significance. That is not the case. I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Madam Director. It's nice to see you all again. Gary Leopold, 7425 Peak Drive. This application is basically a conversion of, maybe I can I use this?
You surely may, at no additional cost.
Hello? Oh, excellent. Sorry about the haircut, Margot. Okay, so what it is, this complex was constructed in 1977, so it's going back a few years. Decatur on the west side and Penwood on the south side. It looks like it has an alley that goes up along the side of the building, but in fact that's part of the property. It's paved and it goes right to the rear wall of these single-family homes that go along this side. And then the north boundary comes through the middle here along the drive aisle, and the hatched area merely shows the fire route that we would recommend. Staff's basis for denial is basically twofold. One is that we don't meet parking, and the second is that we don't meet the landscaping requirement. I'd like to address both of those just briefly if I could. As far as the parking goes, obviously the complex was built 30-some years ago under a different set of requirements, and so we are about 40 spaces short. I think it represents actually about 19%. However, we have reconfigured the existing parking layout on the site. We have managed to generate at least 3 more spaces, and included 3 handicap spaces. I do take slight issue with the staff report that says we need 6 handicap spaces. We don't have any handicap units, and if we follow the ADA 2% requirement, we should have 3 or 4 handicap spaces. So we are providing those. And the other thing is that this site is, if I can put this in the middle here, we're located approximately this point right here. And so we're very well served with public transit in the area. There's a 213 route that goes along up Decatur and along Penwood, the 103 that goes by on Decatur, and then a short distance to the north there's the 204 on Sahara. So there's quite a bit of public transit access to the property. We haven't had any real history of parking problems on the site. And as far as the landscaping is concerned, there's 2 things. There's perimeter landscaping and there's landscaping within the parking field. As far as the perimeter landscaping is concerned, this site is, for those of you that may know it, it's fairly heavily landscaped. It's got mature trees. Some of them are 50, 60 feet high. However, on the perimeter, we can't have any landscaping along the east edge or along the north edge because we're in driveways. So we're somewhat limited in that fashion. We do have quite a bit of landscaping that's along Decatur, and there is a small landscaped edge along Penwood, and these areas have been improved. The applicant's done quite a bit of work on the site, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute here, and that has included adding landscaping to the site. In the staff report, I think it says 61 trees, but in fact we've calculated there are 78 trees on the site that meet the 24-inch box standard, and I think that falls about 9 trees short of the total that would be required if we had full landscaping around the perimeter plus within the parking field. So I wouldn't have any problem agreeing to plant another 9 or 10 trees to get us up to that point, which should eliminate the issue with the landscaping. Now, I just wanted to point out that the applicant, as I said, has done quite a bit of work on the property. I have some pictures here that show what it's looked like before. So I guess the point of why I'm showing you these is that I don't think he's looking for some sort of windfall profit by a condominium conversion. He's actually doing the work that is required to bring the property up to a higher standard. These pictures were taken before. You can see, it's plain stucco exterior with some, painted enclosures for the ground floor units. They're all 4 buildings are 2-story. Swimming pool. Not in the great.
Is that a green pool?
Well, I don't know if that's my printer or if it's a green pool. Let's say it's the printer, but
it's not LEED certified.
So it was just a very plain, a plain building. The units inside had old carpeting. The kitchens, weren't set up very nicely. It was very plain. And in the center of the complex, if I can move all this off here, the center of the complex in this area here, there's a large fenced area containing some storage structures, and that's used for storage on the site. The applicant is planning on taking that out and replacing it with about 1,000 square foot clubhouse area with an enclosed patio and a half basketball court to help complement the pool area. And there's going to be modification of the landscaping in the area. We'll retain some either landscape or turf areas in these locations, but the rest will be largely a xeriscape approach. And I'll just quickly show you some of the work that's already been done to date. There's some exterior painting that's being done that's been started in this picture. You can see the ground floor enclosures have been removed and replaced with wooden enclosures. I don't know if I like the dark green color myself, but the point is he's putting a significant amount of money into renovating the exterior of the buildings. I don't have a before shot of the walkways between the buildings, but the concrete was all broken. There was weeds, and he's replaced all that, new planting, new concrete. The interiors have been upgraded to have wooden cabinetry, tile floors. There's new appliances in all the units, or going into all the units, and the bathroom fixtures are all replaced and new. So there's been a fair expenditure of money, and that expenditure is being made, whether the conversion's occurring or not. I think the point is he's really trying to pursue a project that will offer possibly some of the tenants that are in there or in the neighborhood an opportunity to own property in that area. And I think it's a different type of condominium approach than you might see in some other areas. As far as the conditions of approval, the if-approved conditions, they are all acceptable to us, and we would ask for your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you'll have.
Thank you much. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll accept comments and questions from the board. Commissioner Quinn.
My first question will be, are these going to be for sale, sir?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I always like to hear that you're going to have a unit or two for sale for a disabled person. You show disabled parking, but I'm not hearing anything about a disabled unit, one or two available for a disabled patron.
I'm sure that would be available, and I apologize for not being able to answer that question. I'm sure with the number of units they have, there's 55 ground floor units, I'm sure there is probably even currently one or two units that have disabled tenants in them. And as the earlier applicant was indicating, I'm sure these units could be easily adapted for that purpose. The ground floor units, the upper floors would be more difficult.
I'm going to listen to my colleagues before I make my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions by the board?
Yeah. Just because I know this building, know this complex very well, and if you look at the original architecture and then you look at the mansard roof that was added some 20 years later, is it fair to say that, this is 30-some years old?
It was, I think it was completed in 78.
Okay. Sometimes a building is just an apartment building, and sometimes buildings were never designed to be subdivided into ownership. When you talk about the codes not being correct on the parking, we've changed. But I question whether the fire codes are what we would expect a condominium project to be built today, and the sound codes. And I'm not saying that the developer's looking for a windfall here, but in some regards, we want to run to provide home ownership, and hence we have a subprime mortgage disaster coast to coast, and could be the biggest disaster for the real estate market in Las Vegas in the last 40 years. I just don't understand on this particular project all the things that are going into creating a home ownership that is selling somebody an apartment. We're not selling a condo. We are selling an apartment. And I just, on this regard, some of these buildings, some of them were designed to be converted, and I've supported some of the conversions in the past, but I've also not supported conversions that were apartment buildings that really were never positioned to be that. These are, I just don't see us making a good decision on that. I don't see it a good planning decision, because what we will, by doing that, I think we will prevent this property that was designed for probably a 30-year lifespan or less from evolving into other futures that it may be better used for. So we're not like some of the East Coast cities where things are block and they're steel and they're monstrous buildings. They're built for 100 years and they've gone through a bunch of reuses. This was built as an apartment, and I'm not saying that apartments are bad. I'm just saying that this building, I don't think, was designed to meet the expectations that you're presenting to us tonight.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and you raised some good points, and I guess my response to that would be certainly on the subprime issue. It's even harder now for people who are at an entry level to come up with an adequate down payment so that they're not into that type of situation. I think a project like this might offer people that opportunity to get into a condominium. Not all condominiums have to serve a move-up market or a more expensive market. And I think it would be difficult to, even if you swept the site clean and started over here in this area, to try to come in and, go with an upscale project. Not that this is an upscale, but it's a very nicely returned version of what's been there before. I think it fits with the neighborhood. He's done a lot of work to the site and is continuing to do work to really turn the property around. I don't think there's any structural issues with the building at this point. I appreciate that there is a life to the building, but I don't think we're there yet. And a lot of the exterior work, where there was wear and tear showing, that's been turned around. So I guess those would be my comments on that.
Thank you. Thanks. More comments or questions from the board?
Yeah,
Mr. Steinman.
I think you buy a condo to live in a condo generally for 10 years or more, and that makes this building 40 or 50 years old to some people. And I was shocked when I saw in this particular demographic area that this was going to happen. It sort of reminded me back of 2 years ago when this is all we were seeing through here was the conversion of apartments, and I'm not sure all of those got sold. In fact, I'm positive they didn't, and they're rentals today. This is a rental market at that point on Decatur, and it is a nice thing that is an upgraded 30-year building to be a nice rental, but I just don't grasp that this is a condo market through this area. And I'm not sure where they're going to find the down payments that are going to be necessary now to buy these units, because I'm not sure they can get the zero down type situation we lived through. So I tried to struggle with this thing to say, oh, well, this is all changing. This is going to be a ownership area. I don't think it is. I don't think we've reached that point in its history. And I do agree with Commissioner that there is a life on these buildings that were built back in the 70s, and it's probably outlives its useful life in accordance with appraisal terms, obviously, and I don't think it has 10 or 20 more years left in it, and that bothers me when we convert this. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions or comments, we'll entertain a motion on item 52.
I entertain the motion to follow staff's recommendation to deny this motion number SDR 26163 at this time, and sorry.
Motion on the floor for staff recommendation of denial. A vote yes will be for the denial. Cast your vote. And that has passed for denial.
And that'll be final action in the absence of an appeal within 10 days.
Thank you.
Item 54, Director's Business, DIR 26541, applicant owner, City of Las Vegas, request to adopt the City of Las Vegas Planning Commission rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Director Wheeler.
Sometime in the 80s was the last time the City of Las Vegas Planning Commission rules and regulations were adopted, and to our records we find no updates since the chairman at the time, Robert Bugby, signed the rules and regulations.
Anybody know him?
Does anybody, is it
Yes.
Commissioner Truesdell has a recollection? Okay. Sometime in the 80s, these were signed. I really want to thank the City Attorney's Office. Mr. Scott has done a tremendous amount of effort on this, and I know.
Isn't he coaching the Alts? Aren't you
I
supposed to be in New Orleans?
You guys, it's late. I changed it to Dr. Scott. How's that? Dr. Scott has done a tremendous amount of work on this, as have others in his office, and I really, really appreciate that. We researched the other Nevada Planning Commission rules and regulations, specifically Reno and Sparks. Today you had an update again based on the input of Dr. Scott. We have amended Section 10, and we bring these forward. They're certainly not so extensive as to govern all of the actions and activities of the Commission, but we hope that they will be an update that can guide your actions and will be useful to new planning commissioners as they come on board. So with that, it's before you this evening for your comments and consideration.
This fails to address overtime pay for Valentine's Day.
That it took the form of the fudge and cookies in the back room.
No further
No.
discussion?
Any discussion on this item from any of the commissioners?
Yes.
Mr. Steinman?
Director Wheeler, I'd like to know, is this a plan to, in Roman numeral 8B, to distance us from speaking to the staff?
No, it's just the existing language. You can certainly speak with them directly. Usually what we will do is advise you whom is your primary contact, and then you go forward from there.
In the future, you'll advise us who our primary contacts?
Yeah, again, Mr. Rankin has been the
Yeah.
manager for Planning
Yeah,
Commission for some time.
and I rarely come down, but when I do, I
Right.
walk in, if he's there, I have a chit-chat and I'm out.
Sure.
And I just don't want that to be interpreted, I have to come upstairs and see you first,
No.
and then go see.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because she's never at her desk.
That's right.
Any more questions or comments on item 54?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
if I
Scott?
could I just want to know, maybe if there's a section in here which talks about whether when a commissioner is abstaining that they are mandated to go to leave the dais. I was just a little concerned about if we don't have a quorum of members up here that we may run into some issue. I was wondering if you would want to maybe change that to a may instead of a must on section.
That'd be 10B.
Yeah. 10C. Oh, I'm sorry,
10B is a new one.
And then maybe it says that you may absent himself from the presence of a non-abstaining member, just in case you actually want to sit here if there's not a quorum of members here to keep the meeting going.
And also, when we do our one motion, one vote, our consent items, there's a point of time where we may abstain on one item and you make the disclosure, but you're still there for the rest of the items. The idea of having to exit from the dais doesn't make a lot of sense.
I would just maybe just put a may instead of a must.
Correct. Is that, you would concur with that?
Fine.
Director Wheeler? Okay, we'll make that change. Any more questions or comments on the rule?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one thing that I think we should clarify, because at least if I think I'm reading the most current one here, where it talks about 10B, testimony by planning commissioners. I think there's, NRS, and I think there's some other question mark about a planning commissioner going out and making presentations out front. If you
That's been eliminated.
Thank God.
That's not the current one.
Okay, because all right, then
And
they corrected it.
if I may,
Commissioner Evans?
from my understanding of this document, it's just guidance to a large degree. I mean, I think much of it is dictated by common sense, but for the newer folks, or I think it's important that in the public meetings like this, that the primary communication be directed through the chair, and that there not be dialogues between the applicants or the members of the public without the chair having the opportunity to sort of facilitate that, if you will. And I see part of this document as basically just doing that, providing that kind of guidance so that future planning commissioners, as you say, Ms. Wheeler, the language hasn't, or the document hasn't been revised since for 20-some years, so for all the people that follow us, there's some roadmap to how to conduct our business, so I would be supportive of this.
Thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion on item 54.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the rules as presented, amended and presented this evening by staff.
The one amendment in section
With the
10B,
one
may,
amendment.
must to may.
Okay. Motion on the floor for approval. Please cast your votes.
record show I voted in favor.
Okay. Please let the record show that Commissioner Dunham will abide by the rules.
He never votes with us.
We're going to call him Sam Chad Dunham. Citizens' participation, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. No subject may be acted upon by the Planning Commission unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Ms. Bon Jovi.
Yes, Elizabeth Bon Jovi again. I just wanted to clarify on the two properties that they mentioned in Rancho Circle that
Yes,
have
ma'am.
the 10 and 12-foot walls. The first one is in the back here, where the frontage of this property faces the backyards of these properties.
Okay.
So they're already facing a fence here, so they were able to get I think it's a 12-foot back here. The other one is at the very entrance to Rancho Circle. There's a guard gate here, and as you come in, there's a median, a landscaped median in between here. So that kind of buffers the fence, the other fence that's located right here. So I just wanted to have that on the record. I hadn't
Very
even
good.
thought of it.
Okay,
So
it is on the
everything's
record.
set.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys have a happy Valentine's Day.
You too. That will end our
Hang on.
citizens' participation.
We got one comment. It's now 9:34 on Valentine's Day, and I want to take this opportunity to wish my wife a happy Valentine's Day for the 27th time. It's the first time I've missed Valentine's Day with her.
And honey's coming home.
Yeah, for my husband. We've only been married 2 years.
We have another announcement.
I just
Director
wanted
Wheeler?
to, Mr. Rankin, who's usually with us this evening, is at home with his wife and his daughter Katie and his brand-new baby boy, Ryan Douglas Rankin. So, new arrival to the family, and he's been emailing me throughout the meeting, so I imagine he's still watching, so.
Well, and
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I guess when Margot's done with that, I need to say that I know Robin's not happy that I'm here, but I appreciate her letting me take time off to do this stuff.
So moved. Happy Valentine's Days to all the wives and significant others. I may as well say